Bam! All right, we ready to do this thing? Yeah, we are. Welcome inside the numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. It's pre-game show for election 2023 next week. Coverage starts next week on election day, 6 p.m. Kentucky will close first. State polling poll open and closing times are on locals, but you will see Kentucky will close first. So we're going to have kind of a rapid thing here. That's why today, especially because Kentucky is first and because it's more competitive, today we're going to go over key counties and targets for each candidate in these counties, or roughly their targets. And people always ask me, Rich, how do you do this? How do you call a race? How do you look to see who's winning? How do you know who's going to win, who's going to lose? Kentucky's an actual example that isn't terribly complicated that we could go over. And because we know, well, we don't know, but we estimate what we think turnout is roughly going to be. And we have a range. We can drill down a couple counties that Beshear will need to hold certain margins in from 2019. And we'll look at a couple of counties where if Cameron is running ahead of Bevin in said counties, it likely bodes very well for him if Andy Beshear is not making it up in some of the other counties. So we got a nifty little map we're going to go over. We're going to show you the latest polling on it, and it's going to be neat. But before we go on, don't forget to like the show if you are watching, or like the video if you are watching on YouTube. Subscribe or anything on Getter, YouTube, Rumble. Subscribe. Rumble, we're a few, like literally 3 followers away from our targets. So speaking of targets, so go ahead if you are watching on Rumble and you have not subscribed yet to the channel, we would very much appreciate it. Listen, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week or so, something like that, ballpark, I told you cannot count out Daniel Cameron, the Attorney General and the Republican candidate for governor, going against Andy Beshear, who is a very popular Democratic candidate in the state of Kentucky. All right. So before we move on to the targets, we're going to go over one of the latest polls real quick, and I'll give you my thoughts on it. But I told you this because since 2014, there have been more than 20 polls conducted in the state of Kentucky, and all but one of those polls did not understate the share of the Republican vote. And how much do they understate the share of the Republican vote? 7, 12, 13, 14 points. It's outrageous. It's a difficult state to poll for a couple of reasons. One, geography and education. Major challenges pollsters have: geography and education. And it's a tough state given that. 2, there are a lot of ancestral voting areas, ancestrally Democrat voting areas in the state of Kentucky. For the presidential race, it's a little bit easier. But when you're talking about gubernatorial elections, sometimes even Senate elections, Mitch McConnell has been vastly understated. So has Rand Paul in previous polls we looked at and researched. It was outrageous. There is usually, with the there hasn't been that much that we can really have an average of polls. But when we look back, not in this race, but in others that have been, but even in 2019, they largely got Beshear's vote share roughly close. It was Matt Bevin that they grossly underestimated. That one poll, by the way, was a Trafalgar poll that showed Matt Bevin winning. Matt Bevin did not win, the incumbent Republican governor who had a lot of problems, but he did not lose the way that polls suggested he was going to lose. It ended up being a very close race. The polls did not really suggest that. Some of them had Andy Beshear walloping Matt Bevin. Even before that, when Matt Bevin first won, his vote share was grossly underestimated. It was looking at a very low single-digit race. The Democrat was very strong in the polling, and Bevin blew his ass out of the water. So that was the first time Matt Bevin was elected. So I told people, I cautioned people, do not count Daniel Cameron out. We have seen this before. We have seen double-digit leads for Democrats in the state of Kentucky completely evaporate. All right. And by the way, in the primary, Daniel Cameron's vote share was understated by double digits. He did much better in some of the very key areas we're going to talk about today than polling suggested he would do. And Kelly Craft, the Rhino, No offense if you're a DeSantis supporter, but she is the establishment K Street donor class candidate. Hell, she is a donor. Kelly Craft underperformed grossly, and in fact, in many counties, was beaten by the candidate who was a state legislator, and took the localized approach. He really had a local rural approach, and it served him well in a lot of these rural areas, especially in Western Kentucky, where he outperformed Kelly Craft, who ended up in third place. But ironically, she even did worse in Louisville and Fayette and some of the other places where, we always hear about the suburban woman, all right, and Cincinnati burbs, which we're going to talk about. The suburban woman, she got rocked. So now we have this new poll by Emerson suggesting this is a really close race, a very close race. So let's go ahead and read it. Trump supporters rally to Cameron as elections approach. Oops, I forgot. Give me 1 second, because there absolutely was something I wanted to show you. There were mailers, okay, that both candidates are sending out, and they're really indicative of what you're seeing from Andy Beshear and what you're seeing from Daniel Cameron. What Cameron did, who, by the way, Cameron was grossly outspent. Grossly. Andy Beshear raised a lot more money than Daniel Cameron. But is it coming up? Yeah, we go. There's Cameron's. I see Cameron so far. I do want to show you this, especially when we get to the rest of this polling here, because even if I don't show you Beshear's, which I want to, I think it's important for me to show you. Yeah, there's Cameron's. Cool. Upload. All right. It's that important for me to interrupt the show, because they knew it, is my point. Neither one of these guys particularly thought that this was going to be a blowout race for anybody. And the internal polls had suggested, if you look at Andy Beshear's internal polls, he's up by a few points. If you looked at Cameron's, actually, though, he was up by 6 about a month and a half ago or so in his internal, maybe 4-6 weeks ago, closer than the last Emerson College poll suggested. And here we are now. And why? Because Trump supporters rally to Cameron as election nears. It is an even race, but when you look at those who lean, Cameron actually takes the lead 49-48. Somebody in the comments had mentioned a runoff. No runoff. I think you're thinking about the primary. In fact, when Beshear beat Bevin in 2019, it was 49.2 to 48.8. Beshear beat Bevin by less than 5,000 votes. It was an incredibly close election. All right. So let me pull this up so you can actually read out. I'll put myself back on the screen here in a second, but this is why I wanted to bring up the mailers that they have been sending out. But yeah, let's let me just, and I do see before, Laura should go ahead and probably pull that stuff, and I'll probably see it. But just in case I don't, I have great respect for Jim Lee at Susquehanna. I just think that poll is a gross outlier. I think he's right about Kennedy pulling support from Trump more than from Biden, but I cannot see that Kennedy pulls 6 points or 5 or 6 points from Trump and almost nothing from Biden. I think that's something very wrong happened there. And if you look at the RCP average, you'll see Trump is up. There was another Harvard or Harris X poll that came out, and another one, and even Quinnipiac, which is a very Democratic poll, has Biden barely up. It's like 1 point, but that's, this is where we're at. It's usually from Biden by 2 points to Trump by 6, 7, actually 10 with the ABC News poll. I'm curious to see what they find again. The prior poll before that was Trump plus 6. So, an edge for Trump, but no one is finding Biden with a 7-point lead. That is just, I don't even know how they got his vote share that high, frankly. I mean, it must have been an incredibly skewed poll. The other poll that just came out that I have never heard of, and because I'm seeing all the banter in the comment section, I want to bring it up. The other poll that just came out from a company called Causeway Solutions is an absolute embarrassment to the polling industry. No wonder why nobody takes us seriously. A friggin' D plus 16 sample? Are you out of your mind? And by the way, that's Biden's entire lead. They got Biden. This is what I'm trying to explain to you. In a D plus 16 sample, they got Biden at 47. And somehow, and again, I know Jim, he does good work. If he got it wrong, he just got it wrong. But he's not being, there's nothing, I would never say anything like there's something intentional going on there. Everyone gets it wrong from time to time. Happens to me all the time. Not all the time, but sometimes we'll collect data that we don't particularly like, and we go back into the field and we make sure that it's not statistical noise. I suspect he didn't do that. He has an omnibus survey. He probably has the budget he has, so we just kind of let it go. But even with Jim's poll, listen, they had Biden at 47 as well. And my point is to get Biden not only that far ahead, but to have his vote share high like that, where we do not. We have him in the high 30s to low 40s. You would have to have this kind of nutcase weights like you see with Causeway Solution. Just so people who don't know what I'm talking about, it's a registered voter survey. All right. It's only about 1,000. And yet, you ready? D, 43%. Republicans are 27%, and independents are 25%. Ladies and gentlemen, that's absolutely insane. Back on planet Earth, Democrats are not going to have a 16-point turnout advantage. This is crazy. Even in the midterms, when once again they were able to vote harvest and gather way better than Republicans, it was still only D+1, the electorate. That's it. In 2020, I believe it was D+1 or even. No, it was D+1. Just thinking of it now. It was 38-37. This is something, and I don't like waiting for party. So I strongly suspect they just really screwed the pooch and they didn't wait for party. If they did and they waited like that, then God help them. But I think what really happened is geography and education. Geography and education. All right. And make sure your ages and every other things. Like if, for instance, your seniors are all in urban areas and all of your young people are rural, you probably have a problem. I'm not going to tell these people how to do their jobs. Just let them look stupid. But this pisses me off because it makes us all look dumb. D+16. Your mother. How about that? The final Emerson College polling survey of Kentucky voters before the 2023 gubernatorial general election finds incumbent Governor Andy Beshear and Attorney General Daniel Cameron in a dead heat. 47% support Beshear and 47% support Cameron. 2% support someone else, and 4% are undecided. It's worth noting that 2% on the dot supported Hicks in 2019. And 4% are undecided. When undecided voters are asked which candidate they lean toward at this time, with their support accounted for, Cameron holds a slight advantage. 49% support to Beshear's 48%. Since last month's poll of registered Kentucky voters, Beshear's initial support has decreased by 2 points, 49 to 47, while support for Cameron increased 14 points from 33 to 47. Undecided voters have reduced by 9 points from 13% undecided to 4% ahead of the Tuesday election. It's this looks, and I went through their numbers and everything. They always put it in an Excel spreadsheet, which sucks. Come on, guys. Spring from Market Site. I love you, Spencer. Spring from Market Site, bro. Come on. You got a whole hell of a grant over here. You're pulling your butt off. You can spring $200 for a seat on Market Site, or a month. $200 a month. And frankly, you should get the enterprise solution like we have, because you would have numerous seats. And yeah, it's more, but I mean, it's for the year, the fractional cost of a poll. I mean, you could do better. Spencer Kimball, the executive director of Emerson College Polling, said Cameron appears to have gained ground by consolidating Republican voters who supported former President Donald Trump in the 2020 election. This is huge. All right. Before I move on to the abortion thing, I'm going to show you why it's huge. In October, 54% of Trump supporters supported Cameron. Now, as Election Day approaches, that number has jumped to 79%, a 25% point increase. Notably, October's poll was of registered voters in Kentucky, while the final election poll includes only those who are very likely to vote or already have voted. So he tightened the likely voter screen. Let me show you what Cameron did. And I'm not going to bring myself up because it's going to just overlay over this. This is what Cameron did, knowing throughout the last 6 to 8 weeks that he was running very soft with Trump voters. It's the whole ball game. This is a state that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, 62.13 to 36.17. Joe Biden nearly got shut out of every county. There are only 2 counties that Joe Biden won, which is important when we talk about our targets here in a second. But this is what Cameron did, knowing that he was running behind, while Bashir, who outraised him greatly, has been bombarding the airwaves and mailers with talks about abortion, which is not the law even passed in Kentucky, folks, is not popular because Republicans are not arguing about abortion the correct way. This is why Trump is smart to have taken issue with how they do it. But let's look at Cameron's mailer. Okay. Andy Bashir, endorsed by Joe Biden. Daniel Cameron, endorsed by Donald Trump. Biden has bankrolled Bashir to the tune of $250,000. And then when it comes to Cameron's side, sued Joe Biden to secure the border and stop the flow of illegal drugs into Kentucky. Big deal. Big issue there. President Trump endorsed Biden over Trump twice, is for Bashir, right? And President Trump has to complete, or Daniel Cameron has to complete and total endorsement of President Trump. Taxes. Vetoed a major tax cut to save Kentuckians $1 billion, while Cameron pledged to eliminate the income tax. Law and order. Ordered the release of nearly 1,900 convicts, some of whom are now facing new charges like murder and sex offenses. And Cameron is endorsed by the Kentucky Fraternal Order of Police. Bashir vetoed bills that would ban sex change surgeries for minors and keep boys out of girls sports. When Cameron has fought to ban sex change surgeries and will ensure only girls compete in girls' sports. This is how Cameron closed the gap. Full stop. Full stop. Democrats, especially in Kentucky, because we've seen this in North Carolina, we've seen this in Florida. We know the area. This is an even different kind of southern state, but it nevertheless is still the South. They want to talk about abortion. That's great. You talk about them cutting off penises. They want to talk about abortion. That's great. You talk about how they want to put penises in your girls' locker rooms, in your daughter's locker rooms, in your daughter's bathroom. They want them sitting there watching your daughter get changed for gym class, for the soccer team, whatever. Cameron took a long time to get up to speed on it, but in the last couple, but he just didn't have a lot of money, too. That's number one. Republicans suck. They're too busy. Republican donors are too busy trying to defeat Donald Trump in the Republican nomination to give Daniel Cameron their support. So they would rather chemically and physically castrate your children. Time for some real talk. Don't you think? He should never, this is a red state. He should never have been outspent by Andy Bashir like this. Frankly, the guy deserves a friggin' medal for even closing the race like this. We're going to show you how strong Andy Bashir is. He will be very tough to beat. I told you this before the Republican primary, no matter who won. And by the way, I do not think Kelly Craft could have beaten him. I just don't. I don't. You need certain people to turn out. There is a scenario in which low turnout hurts Daniel Cameron. You need certain people to come out. And what do I think? Well, we had the Louisiana governor's race. It was low compared to the last election, about the same as when John Bel Edwards was first elected governor as a Democrat. And Republicans romped. They did good. The higher the turnout, the better it is for Republicans. That's just true. But there is, of course, scenarios too when Democrats are just really in a malaise. Their president sucks. They're blowing up the world. I mean, starting World War III, collapsing the economy. You tend to not want to vote. if your guy's in charge. And just casting an eye over to nearby Virginia, the early voting numbers do not look good. They look more Democratic, and they are. I think Republicans are doing a better job, but the fact is they're still being outdone in the early vote. But the early vote is weaker than it was when Glenn Youngkin was elected by 2 points. Significantly weaker than 2021. Looked like by Monday they had basically thrown in the towel and they were done. We usually see a sharp increase as the election gets closer, and then we'll see a drop off maybe a day or so before the election, if that at all. But we see this ramp up in return ballots, whatever it may be in a particular state. And in Virginia, we did see that in 2021. It's just that Youngkin and Republicans actually did much better with independents. So it was a little bit, reading the early vote tea leaves can be tough because it may look very Democratic. But if Republicans are winning that early vote in independents, that's what happened with Youngkin. He was winning them by like 13 points. So it wasn't that bad. And then on election day, actually, he was winning them with the early vote by, I think, like 7. And then he won them on election day by like 18 or something. And it made it overall was like 13. But there was a big romp on election day. Republicans are going to need a big election day romp in Virginia because the electorate for the early vote obviously favors Democrats. It is more rural, but it favors Democrats. But it has fizzled out. What Republicans need is for that to just have been the case with early vote. And then they get out in big numbers next week on election day. It's still a stupid strategy. They should not be doing this. But you know what? It is what it is. Now, if there is not a big election day turnout, Republicans are going to have a hard time keeping control or taking control and holding it in one of the houses. So we'll see. We'll see. All right. So for that's Daniel Cameron's mailer, and that was very good. Support for Cameron has increased among older voters in Kentucky since the October poll. I just want to make sure notable October. I didn't jump a paragraph, did I? No. A majority of voters, 58%, ages 50 to 69, now support Cameron for governor, a 22-point increase from October, where Cameron held only 36% support among the same age group. If you remember, age was something I pointed out back then. I said, that sounds a little crazy to me. This is more like it, and this is a good result for Cameron. Bashir's support among 50 to 69 years old has dropped 9 points from 49 to 40. Big, big change, and one that Cameron needs. Independent voters remain split between the two candidates. 48% support Cameron, while 46% support Bashir. 6% would vote for someone else. Well, then, listen, that's a big problem for Andy Bashir. A big problem. Because voters expect him to be reelected still, 57 to 41. 57 think that he'll be reelected. 41 think the attorney general will win. Ever since 2020, the who do you think will win gauge, which was, I don't know, accurate for 100 years. All right. Is no longer accurate. It's so ridiculous, Laura. Gallup literally had 70-something years of data on that question. It was more, it actually was right when Gallup had one of the few ever misfires that they had, which was, of course, Truman and Romney. That's really all they ever blew. They were always very close. That's why they were the gold standard. Kentucky voters who opposed the current state laws that ban abortion in nearly all cases, with no exception for rape or incest. 55 to 28 who support it. 17 are unsure. Majorities of both men and women voters oppose the abortion law, Kimball said. 52% of the men and 58% of women oppose the laws, while support is relatively similar. 30% of male voters and 28% of women voters who support the abortion laws. This is a big problem. Republicans don't know how to talk about this issue, and it's really pathetic. 3/4 of Democrats in Kentucky oppose the current abortion laws, while a plurality of independents, 47%, said the same. Republicans are more divided on the issue of plurality support, while 37 oppose and 21 are unsure. And this is what it's going to come down to with the election as well. Bashir Did it in 2019. He got much better turnout and everything too, but he did it in 2019. And that's not, that's the only way to win Kentucky. A significant majority, 83% of voters who support Andy Beshear for governor, oppose the state's no exception abortion laws. In comparison, a slight majority of voters who support Cameron support the state's abortion laws. I just want to go over real quick. This is why Emerson tends to be more accurate than others. I'm just telling you right now. No offense to any other vendor, but they use the best vendor for voter files. And the emails themselves that were provided by them, they have high quality emails, cell phones. This is why I think he was able to find a little bit better result for Cameron, even though it's typically the case that Republicans are understated. I'm wondering if whether or not that is that trend, that what is it called? I mean, that history. I mean, it's like a winning streak or a losing streak for a game, for a team. I mean, polling's been on a losing streak when it comes to pegging Republican support. I'm curious to see whether or not that ends next week. After 10 years, could it end? Why? Because the advent of polling through different modes like SMS. I tend to find, I'm telling you folks, when it comes to the Appalachia regions, Appalachia part of the countries, the Appalachian Trail, states that have parts of it that run through it, that culture, reaching people through live caller is not going to happen, and that's why you're going to miss those people. And if you do get them, you're going to get people who are not particularly representative. It's just an attitudinal difference. If you text them, and you text them a link to a web survey, and there's an agent, by the way, a live agent who can talk to them if they have questions. Hey, who is this? Is this they go back and forth, right, Laura? Is this an independent poll or is this a poll for a candidate? Who is this? Who conducts this poll? What's this for? If you don't answer them, they're not going to click on it. One simple answer by a live agent can increase the response rate. And we have found that the SMS mode is reaching people in a way that even online cannot. So I'm very curious to see. If you remember, I kind of took a jab at Spencer. He understated Cameron's support in the primary. And what did I say back then? If you guys rewind the tape, you look at it, you'll remember, or you'll see what I said. You'll listen to it again and you'll hear what I said. His poll had some online component, but it was IVR. And that's fine if you're using IVR in a survey like he is here. He's using interactive voice response that can only call landlines. They're going to be older, but you're going to miss. They could be more conservative too, but you're going to miss, folks, a key element of the electorate that is a really I hate both parties section of the electorate. I'm, disconnected from the traditional polling universe electorate. And you need that. And I'm telling you, if he would have used SMS in the survey of the primary, he would not have understated Cameron's share of the vote that much, which is what I said at the time. You would have saw him do better in Louisville. You would have saw him outperform his polling and outperform Kelly Craft in, Jefferson and the burbs, the Cincinnati burbs, place like that. And it's important to remember that subsets based on demographics, gender, age, race, carry with them higher credibility intervals as the sample size is reduced. Survey results should be understood within the poll's range of scores, and know with a confidence interval of 95%, a poll will fall outside of the range of scores 1 in 20 times. I love that he's explaining this, because I have found myself this year trying to do that over and over and over and over. Now let's look at Beshear's mailer before we go into the counties, and you'll see why Beshear is trying to do what he's trying to do. Let me take a real quick break and have a drink of water. Okay, so while Beshear's groups are going after Cameron on the abortion issue and hammering away, and it's not just Cameron, but Republicans in general, which I thought was kind of stupid, because you're trying to win over 20% of the Republican Party, 15, 20% of them. You don't want to bash them as a party, but you do want to say, there's just some of them that have fringe views, because there are a lot of moderates, Trump knows this, who don't agree with the Steve Deese and Jenna Ellis version of how you talk about abortion. They don't agree. It is a minority of the country. I myself think abortion is evil, but that doesn't matter what I think. It only matters what the electorate thinks. So you have to know how to talk to them without scaring the shit out of them. So when the third party groups are doing that, Bashir is going with his economic message. Bashir freezes, and his economic message is, yes, the economy sucks, but I've been doing everything to help you with it. He freezes the gas tax, save Kentuckians million, signs vehicle property tax freeze bill into law. The truth is, he had no choice. They were going to ram this down his damn throat anyway. Bashir signs the GOP-backed tax cut measure, breaking with party. He had no choice. You always have a choice, but it was the smart thing to do. All right. Now let's get into what, let's get into these graphs. All right. Let me exit out of here. Let me remove this. Stop. You're out of here. And let's bring up my handy dandy map that I have shared. Yeah, Kentucky. Laura. She's like yelling at me, yelling in my ear. Hold on. 1 second. Yeah, let's pull this up and add it to the stage. There we go. So locals, I'll give you this in a second. Hang on one second. All right, so here we are. Locals, let me dump this in the thing for you in case we have to break out of this early and come back to it. Boom. All right, and here we go. All right, so this is the targets. Rich, how do you call a race? All right, just give you a brief overview in calculating the vote goals for both candidates in the 2023 Kentucky gubernatorial election. I identified 5 key counties ranging from urban Democratic strongholds to rural counties that forecast the strength of the Democratic incumbent. Each county played a key role in Andy Bashir defeating Matt Bevin in 2019, and Daniel Cameron will need to outperform the former Republican governor and candidate to prevail. And I'm just going to go over this in order. We do have the break, and we got a guest we want to bring on and talk with for a bit before Q&A. So, all right, Louisville. All right, below are vote shares for the 2019 gubernatorial race compared to the share for Donald Trump in 2020. Jefferson County is an obvious choice. All right, Jefferson County is one of only 2 counties that Joe Biden won in 2020. It is huge. It includes Louisville, and it represents 1 out of every 5 votes that is typically cast statewide. There are an enormous amount of votes in Jefferson County. Andy Bashir will likely need to slightly overperform his 2019 margin to prevail if Daniel Cameron is exceeding targets in other identified counties that we're going to talk about. In 2019, he won 67% of the vote. He'll need that, at least. He will. Bevin, if he falls below 65, he's done. He's in deep trouble. Bevin, he only got 31.5%. Trump got 39%. And now this will be tough, but he can be driven below 65. And by the way, he can still lose with 67% of the vote in Jefferson County. It depends on how the rest of the counties go. But Donald Trump drove Joe Biden all the way down to 59%. Donald Trump got almost 40% of the vote in Jefferson County. It was incredible. But that's Donald Trump again. And then moving over, the other choice, the other obvious choice is the other Democratic stronghold in the state. All right. They are, this includes obviously Lexington. While Fayette is just as blue as Jefferson, which is one again of only 2 counties carried by Joe Biden in 2020, it only represents less than half of the vote of its counterparts. So it'll be less than 1 in 10 of the statewide vote. All right, just to give you a translate of that. Bashir got 65.5%. Bevin got 33%. Trump got 38.5%. We will see whether or not Cameron falls below Bevin, or if he's a little bit closer to Trump on it. Again, there are some really key swing counties, however, that will tell us whether or not Cameron can suffer a little bit more losses in this area and still prevail. There are 120 counties in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Bashir won 22 of them when he beat Matt Bevin. That is 20 more than Joe Biden won. All right, he dominated Louisville and Lexington, as any Democratic candidate must do to win. But he managed to flip several with traditionally Republican counties, particularly northern Kentucky near Cincinnati. And that's really where we're going to go next here, right? So here we go. Kenton County. Bashir got 49.5% of the vote. This is a Republican county at the presidential level. 48.4% for Bevin. Trump got 58.6%. So if Cameron peels back Kenton, it's a good sign for him. But this county, which let me give you a little idea how many votes come out of it. I wanted to say less than 12,000, but I was wrong. It was about 50,000 votes come out of that. And in the last governor's election anyway, in the presidential election, more than 80,000 voted in that county. But this will tell us, it will give us an enormous indication of where the race is going. It's a Republican county at the presidential level that includes the Cincinnati suburbs. It is a key target for Andy Bashir. He hopes to expand his support because of the suburbs there using the abortion issue. But if Daniel Cameron just outright takes it back, it's end game. Likely end game. This will be a big deal. Kenton will be a big deal, guys. All right. Now, again, can Cameron lose it and then still win? He can, because if he does better in Bowling Green and Paducah and other areas like that, or maybe even does a little bit better, he showed some strength in the Louisville suburbs in the primary. It was really shocking for a Republican candidate. If he does that, then you can offset it. But I'm telling you, it should, because the Cincinnati burbs are there, it should give us a good indication of how other areas around the state are going to vote. All right, so the next one let's bring up here is Floyd County. Bashir got 52.6%. All right, bare majority. Bevin got 45, and the third party candidate, a libertarian, took the other. Trump got 74.9. 74.9. Now, this county isn't a particularly huge county. There was a little less than 12,000 votes in this county cast back in 2019, and in 2020 for the presidential race, there was about 16,350, or I think very, very close to that. But even though it's not a huge number, it will still be a good indicator, because look at the difference in the vote share from normal Republicans and Donald Trump. Take two guesses why. An ancestral Democratic county in eastern Kentucky that handed Andy Bashir a slight majority in 2019, but went for Donald Trump 3-1 in 2020. It is key to identifying whether the Emerson College poll was correct about many Trump voters coming home. All right, so the Emerson to Daniel Cameron. The Emerson College poll is significant if they're right, because it is one of, forget about whether they're Republicans, folks, and whether they're Democrats. All you need to know is that this is a Trump-friendly state, and Bashir needs Trump voters to vote for him as a Democrat. Cameron's strategy of saying, look, he's a Biden guy. He's a Biden guy. He's a Biden guy. He's a Biden guy. Trump will probably carry Kentucky at this point by, it was about almost 30 points. It was like 27 points, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised if Trump carried Kentucky by like 30 to 35 points, like flat. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And there, that tying to Biden was smart. You needed to. You simply cannot lose 20% of the Trump vote to Andy Bashir if you want to be governor. If you want to beat the governor, you just can't do it. Which brings us to our next. McCracken. I picked one that I thought would be significant in the North, one that would be significant in the East, and one that would be significant in the West. A lot of them are going to tell us, and I'll show you the map of how it went in 2019 a little bit later, but they are indicative of the regions of the state, and this is what's going to tell us how they're going to do in the rest of the state. Bashir only got 41.6% in 2019. So Bevin beat him there, 56.9. But this is a county that voted for Donald Trump by 65.1%. So you can see the gross underperformance of Matt Bevin in 2019. If Daniel Cameron is exceeding Bevin's share from 19, it's a very good sign in this county. It means not just in the county. If he's doing that in this county, it's a very good sign that he's going to win. It's a Republican county in Western Kentucky and home to Paducah. And it's obviously key in calculating these vote goals specifically for Cameron. Again, Bevin won here, but he was weak compared to Trump. Let's see where Cameron falls. If Cameron comes in the 60s, Bashir is in deep trouble. Now, it's again, you're talking about the number of votes that are in these places. McCracken only has about 20-something thousand votes, but it is very good in telling us how we think the rest of the state will go. In the presidential election, it was about 33,500 votes. All right. And again, Trump kept Joe Biden at 33.4. I expect Andy Bashir to do better. How much better is the question? Can he keep him at like 37? Can he keep him at like 36? If he does, then it's ball game. It's ball game. Because, again, you can offset it with some other stuff, but we'll just have to see how it goes. Get your questions in real quick, though, because this is what we're going to be looking for moving forward. Locals, check it out. I didn't do it for Mississippi because I think we all know how Mississippi is going to go. I don't think there's a whole hell of a lot of surprise there. There will be in Virginia, of course, and we'll have some time to go over the early vote a little bit more in the state of Virginia. But right now, it's 12:44, or now just turned 12:45. Let's bring on our guest if he's ready to rock and roll. Is he ready to go? Listen, a lot of people talk and a lot of people do. And that's the difference between most people and my next guest. David, thanks for joining.
Hey, no, I'm glad to be here. This is, no matter any show I go on, this is always my favorite show to be on, and you're always my favorite guy to talk to. So, I
really appreciate that. I really do.
Except when Laura yells at me when I text you during the show, then I get scared.
Yeah, well, you should, because she's not playing around. Listen, so you announced earlier this week that you are running against Kevin McCarthy. And by the way, this is one of the most MAGA, if not the most MAGA district in the state of California. And I'm just, I want to first just get your take on why you did, for people who don't know, with California redistricting. When you first ran, you initially wanted to run against Costa, and that they went through like 17 different iterations and placed you like a mile from CD 13, which is why, you ran in CD 13 last time. Now, you've had your store, which is in Clovis. That's Kevin's district. Broken into like three or four times now.
Three times, yeah.
I mean, just crazy. Tell people why you decided to do
this.
Yeah.
Well, this is important. Obviously, there's always been people that have been calling me a carpetbagger since they have nothing else they can hit me on. What happened during the redistricting commission, independent commission, by the way, and you know how that goes in Democrat states. There's nothing independent about these commissions. These are filled with activists at universities who are straight up. I mean, they're as liberal as they come, and they disguise it, but it's done so that the courts have a difficult time overturning it because they can hide behind that independent label. Whereas if you have a state legislature that's massively Democratic like ours, it's easier for the courts to say you gerrymandered it. Yeah. But regardless what happened, the Central Valley got carved up. Fresno is the 5th biggest city in California, and we got absolutely split one way or another. If I go out of my house 2 miles either direction, I could be in 3 different congressional districts. And it's very unfortunate because already the Central Valley kind of gets the raw end of the stick here, because everything that the state does is predicated towards appeasing people in San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. And the Central Valley is always left by the wayside, and people are struggling. So last time when I ran, I had been running already for a year in the 16th congressional district, which I lived in at the time, for Jim Costa. And we never believed that they were going to split this thing the way they did. And so when they finally drew the maps, it ended up becoming the 13th, which is about a half a mile down from my house. And I said, listen, we've already run in here. I've built relationships. I've been endorsed by people in this area. There's no reason not to run in this district. And I wasn't going to run against, Tom McClintock at the time. I was just been like, this is an open seat. I've already campaigned here. Let's do it. And, we thought we had a lot of talk, you and I. We've talked about running because John Duarte has been an absolute disaster. He's basically a Democrat, and we thought about running there. But I made the decision to do this against Kevin because I look at this as a bigger picture fight. My name is the one going on the ballot, but this fight represents our battle, all of us versus the establishment and versus the rhinos that are making the policies in the Republican Party. Kevin is the head of the snake. And if we really want to save this party, we have to fight back against him. And I said, you know what? I need to show people that there are people out there willing to do this. And I'm willing to take on the task. It's a David and Goliath fight, but I'm willing to do it because it's so important. We have to have this fight.
It's funny. Right before you announced, there's this old school. I love this guy. He's this old school political strategist. He used to be in the trenches, David, back in the 90s when it came to, for people who know that out west in general, Washington 3, Washington 4, they've been dragged out fights for years. And he was there watching, years ago when it was the working class areas where Joe Kent, for instance, is performing very well now, used to be the Democratic areas, right? So he's watched how these things have changed, and very astute, very smart guy. And, the week before you announced, a week before you announced, I got a text from him saying, you know what? David Giglio should run against Kevin McCarthy. And I was like, trying to keep my mouth shut, a little bit, but he saw the opportunity there. He was like, this could be an Eric Cantor moment because Kevin's weakened. He's weakened from what happened. He's got a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. But there's a point where what can he tell the voters at this point? I'm a stable force. I mean, this is nothing new. His vulnerability is nothing new. He's just never really had a challenger, David.
Well, exactly. This is, Rich, you and I polled this area of California so many times last time. Kevin is not popular.
No.
The people that like Kevin are the people with the money that control everything that goes on because they give each other favors back and forth. But Kevin's money doesn't mean anything. Yeah, I don't care about his war chest. I don't have to match Kevin dollar for dollar. Kevin has decades of failure. There's nothing he can promise to voters that he hasn't already failed to deliver on in 20 plus years in Washington. All we have to do is raise enough money to make sure voters know there is a viable, real alternative who better represents their wants and their needs. And quite frankly, Kevin's done nothing for the Central Valley since he's been there. And I do want to bring up this point because they also love to hit that I wasn't born in this part of California. And I always tell people, look at the representatives you have, the people in government, they're born and bred. Kevin is Bakersfield proud. Kevin, David Valadao, John Duarte, they're all from here and they've done nothing. Jim Costa, all they've done is cause more harm. The Central Valley is constantly, it's struggling right now. I mean, people here feel left behind. That's the one thing, I didn't have to run again this time. I spent a lot of time debating over it, but I kept going back to the doors I knocked on and the people just coming to me saying, listen, we just feel defeated. It doesn't matter who we vote for, Democrat or Republican. Nobody cares. Nobody's listening to us. And I just felt like I owed it to those people to keep fighting. And we need, it's not enough we took Kevin's gavel. We have to take his seat because, Rich, you saw this poll that came out of Ohio is something you and I have been talking about. The future of the Republican Party is not K Street Kevin McCarthy's party. The future of the Republican Party is a populist America First movement. And Kevin McCarthy has spent tens of millions of dollars resisting that. And we have to show them that we're not going to take that. We're not going to let them give this country to the radical left.
David, I was just going to say, that his district is, an R+30 district. And I would challenge people to look at the map, look at the congressional map, look at the House of Representatives, look at the Democratic delegation, and tell me where around the country you can find a Democrat in a D+30 district who isn't a crazy fanatic left-wing, not even a left-wing Democrat, a nutcase, communist, fascist, whatever, who doesn't believe in basic 1 through 10, buddy. They don't believe in the Bill of Rights. You're never going to find that anywhere. Yet it's so hard. My district is a Trump +32 district, and one of the Greg Murphy was a disgusting disappointment during the speaker fight. There is no reason why MAGA shouldn't be representing these R+30 districts. There's just no reason for it.
No,
there should be nobody like Kevin in that.
That's a great point. People are like, oh, you're from California. You're going to run a MAGA candidate in a California seat. And it's like this district. Yeah. What the redistricting commission did is their strategy was to make seats more Democratic. They were like, let's just lump, because this is the most conservative part of California. So they said, let's make one gigantic district that we're just going to put every single Republican in. So everything around them becomes more bluer. And that seat will just be the one Republican seat. And so this would be a MAGA seat in Tennessee. That's how deep red this district is. And Kevin McCarthy, I mean, this is a guy with an F Liberty score. I mean, he is not America first. He's pretended to be. Look at his donors. Look who funds him. And that's another thing people miss about Kevin McCarthy. I'm tired of hearing about, we just fired our most prolific fundraiser. Every dollar that Kevin McCarthy brings in comes from Wall Street, comes from big tech, comes from Silicon Valley, comes from people who are giving him money to ensure that the America First policies are not implemented and to stop America First candidates from getting elected. And you're absolutely right. That's one of the biggest problems with the Republican Party. We have too many deep red seats that are controlled by rhinos. I mean, look at South Carolina. That's a state where it has a lot of issues with that kind of problem. So we need to win these seats, and that's how we're going to change Congress. We have to keep fighting. And, when President Trump wins in 2024, he needs as many real allies as he gets. Because, I mean, look, we couldn't even censure Rashid Tlaib, dude. I mean, come on.
David, even before he got this primary challenge, when he was still trying to run for speaker, and get a majority, he sacrificed a bunch of MAGA candidates to do it because he thought he would win Rhode Island and seats in Rhode Island and in Connecticut and New Hampshire. That in Virginia, they didn't happen. That they didn't come to fruition. So he wound up sacrificing what could have been a much bigger majority for what he has now. Which so ultimately, that's the irony. The devil, it was his own design. It was like a demon of Kevin's own design would happen to him. And there was an article from the LA Times I want to read here. And this is from July of 2022. And it says, in the new district, as Kevin McCarthy's California district gets redder, discontent brews on his right. And they interviewed a bunch of voters. Here's Cora Shipley, 78 years old, owner of an ice cream shop in Clovis, where your shop is. She said, I do not believe he is a true conservative. And it was a staple of Old Town Clovis, where American flags line antique stores and country music plays over the loudspeaker. He's been on both sides of a lot of issues, she said, from a table in the back from her shop with photos of Elvis on the wall and a thin blue line flag hanging outside. When you hear about people, here's somebody else, Eric Collins, 57 of Clovis. When you hear people talk about the swamp, he's part of that system. He's a long-term politician. You look at some of his past primary challengers, they weren't really challenged, and yet they still garnered a pretty significant share of the vote.
Well, the thing about Kevin's basically a mafia boss. I mean, him going down as speaker is a big deal because there's nothing that happens in California without Kevin McCarthy's approval. So he controls the money. So it's really hard to challenge Kevin. And nobody ever really wants to. You're not even allowed to question Kevin. I mean, that was the mortal sin I committed after my last race, is the fact that I decided, I don't need your seat at your table. I don't need to be your buddy. I'm going to tell the truth to people about what happened and what goes on behind the scenes. And so I committed that mortal sin. And I'm willing to do it because I believe people have a right to know. Kevin's a nihilist. He doesn't actually believe in anything. Kevin only believes what his donors and his handlers tell him to do. And so, he does not represent this district. People don't like him. But the fact that he's just entrenched with the elites has been the problem. And nobody that is willing to fight as hard as I think I'm going to be willing to fight has been able to take him on. And, we've made our plea to the president over and over again. This is a chance for him to show whose party it is, because I do believe that this movement is in, when Trump is gone, whenever that may be, we need people to carry on his legacy, because there is no future for the GOP if they don't embrace his movement. And it's not that I care about, oh my God, I'm worried about the GOP. It's about the country. If we cede this party and let them destroy this party, we're also letting them destroy our country. So, this district's as red as they come. I mean, they had rallies for Trump. We were having our own Trump rallies. People were having vote rallies in this district. They were marching down the streets during the 2020 election in Kevin McCarthy's district.
Yeah.
This is as mag as it gets. And we gotta get somebody in there that is gonna go straight up and take on that swamp.
I've heard, and I'm just going to tell you, even if Kevin was to leave tomorrow, they would try to plant somebody else in there. And I want to read this quote from Kathy, who we both know, is nice enough to me. I've met her, but Kathy Abernathy, she's a Kern County Republican consultant. Yeah. Really, she's a party establishment stalwart. She's a fixture in the establishment over there. And she makes the plea to the Los Angeles Times that he's actually kind of popular in Bakersfield. He said, I don't know one issue that Kevin McCarthy has voted on in Congress that a conservative wouldn't respect, she said. I mean, Laura's laughing in the other room. I could name 10 right now, but the very first one that comes to my mind, Ukraine. The broken promise over the January 6 tapes, the failure to bring the border security bill that he promised people that I know who supported him for speaker, which dirtied them up and helped them just self-sabotage their entire career in this business. And Steve, I'm talking about you, brother. He promised you that border bill. He failed. He lied to you. And then you ran off to go, support Donald Trump's primary opponent, who's getting creamed right now, and now doesn't even believe in primary votes. Apparently, he believes the party knows best and should just take it from Donald Trump at the convention. Which, by the way, we said for months. Do you remember months ago when you and I said that, and they flipped their, what?
And that's because we heard it. I heard about it in California. I mean, listen. Kevin McCarthy he's pretended to be Donald Trump's ally because he owes everything to Trump. He would be nothing without Trump. Trump got him as minority leader, and then Trump pushed him to the speakership. Kevin tried to become speaker back in 2014, and he was emphatically rejected by his own party. He owes his entire career to Donald Trump, and he spent the last year sabotaging Trump behind the line. Remember, Rich, you and I, they tried to rig the California primary. They thought, because they got some early polling on, they said, oh, wait, it looks like Ron could win in California. This could be our chance to stop Trump on Super Tuesday and jump into a delegate lead. And then when Trump started taking the lead, they decided, well, we don't think we want winner take all after 60% anymore, because it's not really fair and we got to represent the party. So, this kind of stuff is insane. I mean, Kevin's voting record's abysmal. An F on Liberty scorecard. His two biggest pieces of legislation as speaker, the things he will be remembered before, the debt ceiling and the continuing resolution, were passed by more Democrats than Republicans. And then he has the gall to criticize Matt Gaetz for having more Democrats vote for his ouster. The only reason only 8 Republicans voted for his ouster because Kevin McCarthy's a mafia boss and people were scared to death. You have people like John Duarte who owe their entire career to Kevin McCarthy. And the irony of Kevin is he got lucky in seats in California, like Duarte's seat, because it was a 50% turnout. That's not going to happen again. He very well could have sabotaged his way into being still in the minority with the way he behaved, him and Tom Emmer behaved during the midterms. He got lucky that they squeaked by in some of those seats in New York because the Democrats didn't think they had to defend those seats because they were so overwhelmingly blue. But then turnout was so low for Democrats that some Republicans squeaked through. So Kevin actually could have cost himself his speakership altogether with the way he behaved.
David, that's a majority Hispanic district. Duarte does not perform well among Hispanics, and yet it was almost 70% white in 2022. That is not going to happen in the 2024 presidential election.
Out right now because their data on that district is not good, and
now they're going to abandon him.
Think for because once you lose that seat, it's going to be Democratic have held forever. And in fairness, John Duarte and Adam Gray are the same person, so it's not really going to be much of a difference because John votes like Adam Gray. So
he does. He does.
I mean, they are the exact same person. And you know, that's Kevin to thank for. So Mr. America First, Kevin McCarthy, spends millions of dollars talks about promising border security, and then he spent millions of dollars letting a guy getting a guy like John Duarte elected, who is now working with the squad for amnesty in the entire country for everyone in the country illegally. And so Kevin never wanted to deliver on those things. Kevin just never thought people were going to stand up for him. And I commend the 8 that did it. I believe it should have happened sooner. I don't think Kevin ever should have been speaker because I knew this was going to happen. And now, you know, the rumors are, if you saw, there was a big story that came out today slandering Speaker Johnson.
Yep.
You know, people are talking about who's leading these efforts. You know for a fact that Kevin was trying to drag on the circus of the speakership vote all along so people could say, well, we have to go back to him, right? We have no choice. We got to get the country back to work.
David, we know this for a fact that him and Tom Emmer were screwing Jim Jordan over behind the scenes. They were working with Bacon. Bacon was never being serious. He wasn't any of the concerns that he brought up and others brought up about Jim Jordan weren't real. They were BSing and biding their time because the plan was to bring Kevin back. And by the way, with your buddy John Duarte over there, he's apparently so inconsequential. He was still telling reporters the morning they abandoned the effort and were about to go to, you know, support Mike Johnson. He was still telling reporters that he was, 100% for McCarthy. Nobody told him that the game was over, that they were submitting. Let me just read this before I get into Kevin's performance overseas.
Yeah.
All right. So they're talking to Kathy, who is a consultant, right? And then they turn to a financial consultant who's with her. And it says, oh, he's a first name basis kind of guy. They literally turn around to a regular people in this, and they get Ronnie Martinez, who's a sales rep, you know, just like a regular person, right? And
he knows a bad salesman when he sees it if he's a sales rep. So
he says, I'm not sure if I can trust that he's going to do exactly what he's saying. And then Scott Cross, who's 65, a music instructor, says, I think he's kind of a marshmallow. I used to like him a whole lot, but he'll be back this, but he'll back this. And then when it's unpopular, back that. He'll back this, he'll back that. And when it's unpopular to back that, he'll back this. He just goes on basically saying that he's a total marshmallow. And then here's Greg Williams, a retired highway patrol officer from Bakersfield. He's a snake. I don't trust any politician. I just wish someone else would run against him. Richard Tilwell, 68, a veteran. Everybody in there is corrupt.
And this is
come on, David.
That exemplifies the disconnect between those elites at the top that think they know GOP voters and think they run the party. They are completely out of touch with the people that actually cast the ballots. And it's not just a California. This is all across the country. And that's why the GOP is in the shape they're in. I've never seen a party so disconnected from the people that actually vote for them. And it's a catastrophe and a crisis waiting to happen because you cannot have that. They basically want to tell voters, here's what you're getting. You're voting for it, like it or not. And that's why this race is going to be so important. We have to show them that we've had enough. Like, we're not going to be ignored anymore. And we're going to take out your prodigal son. You know, he is their prodigal son. He represents everything wrong with the GOP and everything wrong with the Washington swamp. And you know, you saw what he was doing and you led into it. We should talk about that, what he was doing this past weekend. While President Trump is
I want to bring that up.
Trying to kick him off the ballot now in Colorado. And what was Kevin McCarthy doing?
That's what I want to bring up.
He's making fun of Donald Trump.
He's overseas with Frank Luntz, talking about, and this, what a stupid joke. He's like, what was Oxford? And he's like, so I'm pleased to announce we're the first Republican view to win a debate here at Oxford. I guess I'm a good speaker once in a while, right? And Frank Luntz, who is just a slob, David, he's wearing a wrinkled suit.
I know he looked like he crawled out of the underpass, like he came off a 3-day bender. Yeah.
A wrinkled suit, a beat up pair of shoes with a wrinkled suit. I'm not talking about dress shoes, folks. I'm talking about like beat up running shoes, like beat up tennis shoes, not even running shoes. He's a friggin' embarrassment. But he's over there trashing Trump, and Kevin is laughing his ass off while he's watching it.
Yeah, I mean listen, Rich.
Pardon my
You and I
French.
have sounded. You and I got a lot of heat months ago, early on, because we were some of the first people to really start sounding this alarm because we saw it during with everything that happened during our last campaign. I mean, Kevin McCarthy. It's everybody knows it here in California. Everyone in the California GOP despises Donald Trump. They despise his movement. The people that work for Kevin don't like
Yes.
Donald Trump. Their mission is to purge anyone in California that has any loyalties to the president or his philosophy because go look at the ex-California chairman. His name's Ron Neary. Look at him on Twitter. He makes posts daily about how populism has to be destroyed. And we have to go back to this Reagan conservatism. It's not 1984 anymore, guys. Talking about I love balanced budgets. We should balance the budget, but you got to talk to voters about how you're going to make life easier for them and their families, how you're going to keep their jobs here, how you're going to take the crime off their streets. I mean, those are the things that voters care about. It's insane to me. And Kevin just he represents everything that's wrong. It just makes me so disgusted because we're going to see the real Kevin. We're not far away from Kevin being like Paul Ryan, and he's going to expose himself more and more. But yeah, that was a disgrace over the weekend. Trump is fighting for his life, and you know what? Kevin should be fighting for him because if Donald Trump is not the nominee, Rich, you know it, I know it, the Republican Party has no chance next year.
None.
Tell me which Republican other than Donald Trump has any shot at winning Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan. Tell me.
Well, there's Justin, and look, I think they probably understate Trump's share of the vote, but we polled Iowa, we polled Ohio, we've polled Florida, David, and it's neck and neck in Florida with Ron DeSantis as the nominee. I actually think Nikki Haley would probably lose it, and then they would lose, apparently, definitely lose Ohio and potentially lose Iowa. I actually think the polling's a little bit weird on this because Iowa has in the past, pre-Trump, Iowa votes to the left of Ohio. So if you're going to lose Ohio, you're going to lose Iowa. And they're down. I mean, the others are down like double digits in Michigan. They have no chance. And by the way, this was first on Loomer.
Yeah.
Let me just give Loomer some credit for this.
Yeah, Laura's, man, she's on top of everything. She knows the real Kevin, and I think, and she is loyal. She is extremely loyal to President Trump, and she has his best interests at heart. And she's trying to show him, hey, listen, these guys, man, this is about making sure you get back in the White House. I mean, look at him, David. He's going in there and and dressing like
dude.
that.
He's a total scrub.
Looks like he looks like a college student who was supposed to go to a formal event that overslept and just was like, oh crap, I gotta get
Laura Lemon.
That's what he looks like. He looks like a college kid who just woke up and put on his suit from last from a party on. It's
Laura's laughing
ridiculous.
in the other room. Let me, if you can, I got some questions from the audience here. Looks like in your district too. Clover Girl, repeating America First over and over again will not win, I think is what you're saying. An election, just bashing Kevin will not win an election. What's your platform? What issues that matter locally are you going to include in your campaigh? Well, and elections are local.
I'm glad she asked that. I'm glad she asked that because I am still, despite not coming from an agricultural background, I've always been a good student and I like to learn about things. So I've spent a lot of time since I started running, learning about the water issue. I am still the only person that has developed a serious plan to finally solve this water crisis. And the reason for that is because Democrat and Republican, all these politicians who have been in power are paid off. They don't actually want to solve the water crisis. This is an issue we need to take nationally. The fact that every Republican from California isn't constantly talking about solving this water crisis and educating people around the country about why it's so important is a travesty. So water is a big issue of mine. I was a teacher. Education is near and dear to my heart. The data that keeps coming out every day about our schools failing our kids, it just tears me apart inside because we are failing a generation of America's children by not fixing our education system. And we need to give local control back. And then crime. I mean, my stores, even in Clovis, my store's been broken into 3 times already. We have to put pressure on a federal level. We have to say, listen, if states are not going to enforce laws and if states are not going to protect citizens, we're not going to give you money. We're going to deny you funding until you start cleaning this stuff up. We have to take that seriously. And we need to start prosecuting these. We can start prosecuting these smash and grab, these coordinated attacks using free trade laws, trade laws, commerce laws. We have to start doing stuff like that. Economy, you know, my thing is we got to bring jobs back to the United States, and helping our farmers get water is going to bring jobs back to the Valley. I mean, so these kind of things are big issues of mine. And, you know, America first, to me, everybody wants to talk about it. It is not, when I say America first, there's nothing radical about it. My thing with America first means implementing policies that are going to make life easier and less stressful for the average American. So there's also things I want to make a priority of making life better for the American family. I'm in favor of doubling the current child tax credit. And I also want to implement a tax credit, an additional one for couples who file jointly, married couples who file jointly with children, so that they get a break. We have to make raising a family in this country easier. And there's also one other issue that I want to fight about: housing crisis. The fact that the people in Washington are not talking about this is absurd to me. We're giving all our money away to foreign countries, and people in this country can't even afford to own a home. I mean, people are taking 2 jobs to pay basic necessities.
And once the rates went up, priced them out of the market, David. Once the rates came up.
In California, even when the rates were low, it's almost you're priced out of the market. I mean, the Central Valley is one of the cheapest places in California, and it's still ridiculously expensive. And a lot of that is because, one, we got to fix our interstate, so it's easier to transport goods and less costly. We got to stop relying on other countries. We have to bring manufacturing and production back to this country. It's not only because it's going to bring prices down, but it's also a national security thing. You cannot rely on other nations for vital goods and services. And if we don't solve the water issue, we're going to be relying completely on Mexico for our food. And you can't have that.
I was talking to Devin Nunes a couple weeks ago, and he's coming on the show next week, actually, Monday, I believe. And, you know, he got into politics over the water crisis, and, you know, just unbelievable. He was talking about how this is not in, you know, because I was just looking at your website, and for people who've never went to David's website, you should go check it out. His water plan is the most comprehensive water plan I've ever seen. And talking to Devin about it, he's like, that, you know, that's exactly right. And this can be done. It should be done. President Trump, unfortunately, ran into COVID. He was on his way because he was just making Gavin look stupid, and he was putting a lot of pressure on Gavin, you know, who was really just serving the interests of the radical environmentalists.
The wildfire stuff, because obviously Gavin.
Yeah, I mean, he's crazy
everything.
Though,
so Trump was like, "Hey, I can come out here and show you the truth."
Yeah, and he made headway, but you know, Devin said, but ultimately COVID came and it just brought everything to a grinding halt, and that's unfortunate because some of these things do take time and pressure. But what they need is people in Congress to advocate for them, and you know, for him, it was really frustrating and disappointing because all of these California Republicans come into the Congress talking about the water crisis, and when they get there, all of a sudden nobody cares anymore. And it was like Devin was beating his head against the wall, and it's that's tragic, David. They all run on it every time.
You know a lot of the reason because some of these super rich, wealthy conglomerates, they don't actually want the water crisis solved because they're making so much money off of it. They are selling water. They are selling water to Southern California for billions and billions of dollars. And what they're doing, they like when the small and the medium-sized farmers go out of business because they buy up that land, and in turn they get the water rights, and then they sell the land to developers. And these are all the people that are donating to the political campaigns. The people that are donating and funding the politicians that get elected are the land developers and are the rich conglomerate farmers, in farming groups, the big corporations we're talking about, like the Resnicks who own Halo oranges. They are funding these campaigns, and they have no interest in actually solving it. And that's why this has gone on. But you know what? I'm not funded by them, and I don't frankly give a crap about doing what they want, because I go out and talk to the little guy farmer who his family's been in this for generations, and they're struggling to get by. And we just had another bankruptcy here, Wawona Peaches. They're one of the biggest in the country. They are now declaring bankruptcy. They might have to cease operations. I mean, it's just totally out of control. And you know what? If you care more about a check from a lobbyist or some other person than you do about helping those people, then you don't deserve to be in Congress. And it's just a disgrace. And yeah, President Trump really tried to do it. And I want to be in Congress when President Trump wins again, because I know that he still wants to get this problem solved. He was actually talking about it a month or so ago, the California water thing. And I want to bring him my plan, and I want to say, listen, let's get this done together. Let's take this national. You help me be a microphone around the country, and let's get America on board for this. So the next time we pass an infrastructure plan, it's actually going to be infrastructure, because water infrastructure is very vital. And this is not only going to help California, it's going to help all these other states, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. These states all depend on this water. This is a regional crisis that is also a national crisis. So yeah, it's just so frustrating, and so many people don't understand why people would want water scarcity. But it's a money thing, and that's what's unfortunate. And quite frankly, those are the people that fund Kevin, and those are the people that fund Jim Costa, Gavin Newsom. They all fund both sides of the coin. And you and I have told the story about Johnny Teixeira, who surprisingly defeated Jim Costa in 2016. 2016. He ran. He defeated. Nobody thought he had a chance. Nobody helped him. Kevin didn't help him. He worked his butt off. Ran a grassroots campaign. They won on election night. He went to Washington, and Paul Ryan came up to him and Kevin. They said, "Hey, man, we like what you talk about with water, but we actually don't want to solve that one because we need it to campaign." And he said, "Well, I'm not interested in that." He said, "I came here to do something." And then, a couple days later, hey, we found 3,000 votes for Jim Costa, and it's time for you to go home.
Yep, you're out of here.
But that's the kind of stuff, exactly the horse trading that goes on in our politics. And that's one of the things that motivated me. I'm running as a Republican, but this isn't about Democrat and Republican. I hate that we've made this sport. We're just looking at a scoreboard. Who has more seats? This has to be about the American people. People are struggling. I'm in retail. I can tell you right now, people are hurting, man. It is the slowest it's ever been in my 2 years having the brick and mortar. People do not have the money to go out and spend on things because they're just struggling to pay their bills. It's just out of control. So, go to my website, David A.
That's what I was just going to tell them. Tell people where to
put the middle initial in there. You got to put it's davidagiglio.com. Listen, we don't have to compete with Kevin dollar for dollar. Like I said, anything you can give helps. $5, $1, $10, $25. Those donations are just as valuable as $1,000 donations. We just need to make sure that people know we are a viable alternative. And even if Kevin, if he retires, quite frankly, he should retire. His time's up. He should go and retire. But he's going to put in his handpicked successor that is just going to do the same things, funded by the same people. We have to win this race because we have to bring results for the Central Valley, and we have to fight back for this country. I mean, Rich, it's like I don't even recognize this country anymore. I mean,
David, as far as it goes, it's really quite simple. He failed. It really is quite simple. He failed.
He might be a nice guy, but at the end of the day, if the nice guy doesn't get the job done, I don't think he's a nice guy.
I don't give a damn if he's a nice guy or not. I'll be honest with you. It doesn't matter to me. It matters whether or not they are, using the government appropriately, which is to protect or recognize that those rights are not theirs to play with. And they're good stewards of the economy, and they're thinking about the future generations. On every single one of those measures, he has failed. The other day,
the debt ceiling.
It's catastrophic.
The debt ceiling, uncapped for 2 years. I mean,
it's catastrophic.
It's just by the time that cap comes back on, we're going to be looking at a deficit. We're never going to be able to get out of it. I mean, the way
David, it's going to be too much to even service the debt. The projections are there. We already know it's not even going to be viable to service the debt for defense, let alone the entire budget. It's just not.
The debt is growing faster than GDP. Our national debt is growing faster than our GDP. I mean, listen, everybody likes to make jokes when people say, "Oh, you're going to bring up that Rome connection," but honestly, it's hard not to draw the connections because anyone who knows history can see it. It's like, who cares that it happened, thousands of years ago? This is Rome. I mean, they made the same mistakes that we're not learning. And that's why the framers really never intended for the U.S. to be an empire, because they knew what happened to Rome. Empires fall into these traps. It happened to the British, and we cannot let it happen to us because America needs to stay true to itself and be a beacon of light. And right now we are, we're doing a disservice to the whole world with what we're doing to this country. And so, I appreciate it. I love talking to you. And let's win this thing and let's go there and let's fight and let's make America great again. Like I said, there's nothing radical about saying make America great again. This is something that I believe so-called MAGA Republicans, before I go, have to do a better job at. We have to combat this narrative about extremism, MAGA extremists, because we need to fight back and say, what's so extreme about this? Is it extreme that I want to make life better for the American family?
Yeah.
Is it extreme that I want your jobs to come back? Is it extreme that I think your tax dollars should be spent benefiting you? None of that's extreme. So we got to fight that. So thank you for having me.
First.
And, put America first.
Are you kidding me? I mean, it's just so ridiculous. They have messaging deficits, to be sure. But yeah, thanks for coming on, David. Come back soon. Keep us posted as always, of course, and we'll bring you back on soon to talk about it.
Follow me on socials. Anything you guys can give help, even if you can just volunteer, put on there to make phone calls when we eventually do that. It's an uphill fight. It's David and Goliath fight. But like I said, my name's the one on the ballot, but I view it just as my name represents all of us. And we need to show the uniparty in Washington that the American people have had enough. And it's time to start. I think, quite frankly, we should have more average people in Congress. We probably
amen to that, right?
We probably get a lot more representative government if members of Congress were worried about having to pay their bills every month and living like normal people. So thank you very much, and I'll be back on soon.
Thanks, David. As always, brother. Have a good weekend and give your family our best.
I'll give Brooks. Brooks is like, dude, he's like the ladies' man at the daycare. If those of you don't know, Brooks is my son. He's one, dude. Everybody there loves him. I come in yesterday, I pick him up, and they're like, oh, our boy's leaving. He's just so happy. It's great. I love it.
When you're on the website, folks, check it out. You see little Brooks. He's the cutest kid.
Yeah, you'll see him. He's the cutest guy. Thanks.
All the best, brother. But Bakersfield, too, folks, is a super rural district. It's Bakersfield's the heart of it. There's Clovis, obviously. And that's where Kevin was from. And somebody had said in the chat, how did it come to this? How does it get to the point where Kevin is like the guy who's controlling all this money? Well, that's a really good question. And it starts with basically just, selling yourself, folks, selling access. And seniority is the currency in Washington, D.C. So Kevin being there for as long as he has, being in the positions that he's in, that's what rent seekers are looking for. And then he comes to control that money that's brought in. He controls it through the National Republican Congressional Fund, the Congressional Leadership Fund, where he directs basically outside expenditures to help candidates or not to help candidates. And that's how he gains loyalty from members that are in Congress. And if you go to the FEC and you just go around and look at somebody like Kay Granger, go and look at John Duarte's following, you're going to see not only money that he gets from Kevin or did get from Kevin, he's screwed now, but you'll see money from other people's committees. And that's because they're all in that network. And Kevin says, hey, it's your turn now. Byron, you send John Duarte, $3,000. Jim, you send John Duarte $3,000. It's a disgusting system. It's a disgusting system. And, I actually think that in many respects, there's a lot more opportunity for to beat Kevin than there ever was on Eric Cantor, which turned out to be Cantor didn't have the money that Kevin had, but it turned out David Bratt was way ahead. And I'll tell you, John McLaughlin had just given Eric Cantor a poll that showed he was up by 13 points. Lauren and I were polling it back then, and we had David Bratt up by 7, I think, or something. I'd have to go back and look, but he won by like 8 points. And immigration was the number one issue. Eric Cantor had betrayed the voters over and over again on immigration. And he got to the right people. He got to the 4 out of 4 primary voter and made sure some of those older voters knew, and he defeated them. Let's take a quick word, and when we come back, we'll answer your questions, all right? All right, like I always say, folks, there are no political heroes in the story of COVID. The heroes came from average people, business owners, moms, fathers, pastors, school teachers that actually had the courage to stand up, you name it. And these are one of businesses absolutely played a key role in that. And this is one of them. Jam and Bean, not only run by patriots, but they happen to be absolutely fantastic at their job, which is an art. Coffee roasting is an art. And as you can see right there, What to Brew, that's a good one. Whether you're like me, I really like both. I like to have freshly roasted coffee. I got my Pundit man right next to me right now. Or sometimes you're just too busy and you need to throw a K-cup in there and get it done. They got something for everybody. Their gourmet popcorn is over the moon. And there's syrup. And it's Michigan is over the moon. We just got some new ones. And they're now even doing freeze-dried candy, which, again, those honey things that I absolutely love. What were they called again, Laura? Throw it in there. What is it? That Roman just said it. What was it? Something, oh, honey. Oh, yeah. So super, super delicious. If you go right now to jamandbean.com, it's on the screen. Sign up for a new subscription. Use the promo code TPP40 while you're checking out, and that'll get you 40% right off the top. Yeah, you could see the teas there too. I just saw that. Sorry about that, folks. I missed that. Yes, they have teas, and the teas are amazing. Laura made me one when I was sick, and it was like a lifesaver. Yeah, jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40. That'll get 40% off right off the bat. It'll keep you up late at night while we're covering the election next week. All right. And then, by the way, still, when the subscription renews every month, you're still going to get another 10% off just from using that code. All right. So 40% off the rip, 10% every month just for being, just for using the People's Pundit promo code. All right. One more time, jamandbean.com, TPP40, and always send us your feedback. We love to hear it. All right, let's see if I can rip through some of these questions. Do I think issue 1 and issue 2 will pass? Let me just show you what was scarce. But I do think there is some they got some problems. So here I'm talking about no has problems. The Democrats were extremely smart for bringing both on the ballot at the same time. That was frankly quite brilliant. Let me show you a new poll, just brand new poll from, I want to say it's the Cincinnati.com poll, right? Which is in the USA Today network. Now, their polling hasn't been great. It really hasn't, but, this is from Baldwin Wallace University. I'm not familiar with them, but I will say it's from October 18th. It shows the majority of Ohioans are in favor of passing issues 1 and 2, which aim to protect abortion access and legalize marijuana. The poll showed that 58.2% of Ohio voters plan to vote yes on issue 1, and 57.4% plan to vote to approve issue 2, according to results released Wednesday. Dan, I saw your question as well. I'll wrap it up in this. I do think the the pro-life movement is headed for a huge disaster. They simply will not listen. Trump is right about the pro-life movement being filled with a bunch of grifters who have made their careers out of it. And the truth is, they have always been incredibly inept, incompetent, and stupid when it came to the strategy on pushing or advancing the pro-life movement in this country. Anything that the pro-life movement has seen as far as gains in public opinion, when you ask people about their issues, have been because of science. All right, I know this because nobody has pulled this issue in depth as much as I have. And I'm telling you, it has been scientific developments that have shown people that it is much earlier than previously believed that, you would consider it a human. Very simple how one voter put it to me when she found out about the fetal heartbeat, how early that could be. She said, listen, if I shoot you when your heart stops pumping blood, you're medically dead, right? That's it. When your heart stops, you are dead. You have flatlined. That is the standard in the medical world. So why does it not follow that when your heart starts beating, you are alive, right? So now that I know the heart is beating that early, I am obviously going to support these measures. They're just really, really dumb with this, though. And this is why Mitt Romney can't win Ohio. This is why John McCain can't win Ohio. They're supposedly more pro-life than the rest. They talk about it like they're idiots. With Trump, he's totally different. He talks like an average person about this issue. He doesn't scare the hell out of everybody. He doesn't talk about, basically, flagging your fallopian tubes, ladies. This is not how you deal with this. It's the Ohio Post poll. It's an annual study that asks registered voters across the state how they feel about certain ballot issues, candidates, and elected representatives. Now, I will say this, that The poll is consistent with the USA Today Network Suffolk University polling from July, which showed that about 58% of Ohio voters were backing the proposal to protect abortion access in the state constitution. This is how it's framed. And the pro-life movement is not capable of providing a counter to this narrative. You and I both know that it's really not about protecting abortion access in the state. All right. It's not. It's about protecting the ability of the government to regulate it now that it's state by state by state. So when the left lost Roe v. Wade, what they decided was we're not going to get any remedy on the federal level. They're going to try to pass these through the legislature. Republicans did not have a plan for the offensive on how to make sure you don't kill babies. They're stupid. And they overreach. They go right for the jugular. No exceptions. Instead of doing what, frankly, I've been paid money. I know Robert Cahaley has, Laura has as well. With some of these groups, Robert, I think more than me, even though I've pulled it more because I've pulled it publicly. And I've pulled it for years, going back to even 2015, 16. Much more in-depth analysis. Both Robert and I told these respective groups not to start with the fetal heart. You want the real jugular is late term. And little by little, you inch your way down. You do not drastically go immediately right for the most draconian measure you can. Whether, look, you're pro-life or not. You have to understand what I'm saying here. The left never goes for the jugular like that. They don't. They have laid in place their plan over many, many years. They don't automatically one day come out of nowhere and say, I want you to chop off your little son's penis. I'm going to fold his penis inside his body and make a fake vagina and entertain his delusion. You cool with that? They don't work that way. Even gay marriage, they didn't do that. They had the media and entertainment industry for years, more than a decade, prepping you that you're a bigot if you disagree. And little by little by little, they worked it in. Barack Obama ran for re-election as a proponent of traditional marriage. That was only 10 years ago. Roughly a decade ago. Now, fast forward a little over 10 years, and you're all bigots if you disagree. If you agree with Barack Obama when he was running against Mitt Romney for re-election, you're now a bigot. They did this over time. Laura said they go inch by inch by inch. She just sent me a message. She's absolutely right. They do not try to go to the damn starting line, run 30 meters, and leap the highest bar. They go little by little by little by little until you don't even realize that you've lost. When you look back, you go, what the hell happened? How the hell did this happen? Yup. They knew the right is stupid. They knew the pro-life movement is filled with grifters who need this issue to survive. They have no other form of revenue. They have no other purpose on the earth. They literally were born and bred into this movement and into this struggle, this cause. It goes away and they have nothing. So that's where you're at. Until they learn, that's right, incrementalism, Jonathan. Until they learn to do the same, the right will continue to lose. Even in Ohio. I just deleted the graphic, Dan. I wish I could show you it. I don't know that I still even have it created, but it was Ohio issue 2 versus Donald Trump's vote margins. Go look at where he lost. Mahoning, old Obama country, Southeastern. They got creamed. Where Trump runs up huge margins. Pro-life movement got creamed. And by the way, that poll shows DeSantis and Haley losing that state to Joe Biden. I can't say this enough because now you have, I know there is people that had brought this up, Jack and I yesterday, had made a thing about DeSantis's appearance on MSNBC. The fact of the matter is, DeSantis is only in this race because he is waiting for Donald Trump to be removed from the ballot. Ken Cuccinelli, like I said months ago, and they flipped out. I said months ago that they were going to do this, and that was their plan. They don't plan to win. They know they can't win. And yesterday, he accidentally let it spill. And he let it spill that he said if Trump gets a felony, that's fatal, and the party should not nominate in that circumstance. He did not mean the voters, which all of his frauds. Listen, I'm not going to even address somebody specifically, things they say or smears they do, if they don't have the courage to put up their own real name and put a face to their stupid ass account. If you don't have the balls to show yourself, then your thoughts are meaningless to me. And so I'm just not even going to respond to them. But you do have named DeSantis people, DeSantis surrogates and campaign people immediately trying to whack back at me and Jack, saying, oh, he meant the voters. They're full of shit. He said the party, number one. Number two, he is a lawyer. He knows damn well that none of this is going to be resolved until after Donald Trump sufficiently kicks his ass at the ballot box. No guilty verdict is coming down before Donald Trump hands him a series of devastating ass kickings. So he knows full well he did not mean the voters. He meant the delegates. Then over 24 hours, the very same people who were arguing, you liar, he meant the voters, are now openly stating, but the delegates should unbind in that case. They're full of crap. The indictment strategy I brought to you months ago, it was true then, it's true now. And by the way, if you read Philip Rucker and others, Phil Rucker's story, J.D. Rucker's story, and Phil, what's his name, at the Washington Post, we should stop calling it the indictment strategy and call it the incarceration strategy, because they are literally hoping that something happens that changes the whole environment, and Trump is able to be locked up. They're not saying we should hedge our bets in case that happens. They are saying, I hope it happens. You think the polling looks bad for them now? They have zero chance to carry the state. Ron DeSantis has zero chance to carry the state of Ohio because he has now made himself into the enemy. These are people who view both parties, politicians in general, as the enemy. I just read several of them from McCarthy's own district. They will never vote for you. And Joe Biden's going to carry Ohio. You should focus instead probably on Florida. I'm going to read that article before we go here. Let me just play this clip so everybody knows what I mean, because it was in the comment section before. All right, here it is. This is him on Morning Joe, which, by the way, his surrogate and endorsee, Steve Deese, once went on and said, I don't want to make enemies of you good people over Donald Trump. Good people who pushed a hoax that led to Steve Scalise being shot. So good people. They're such good people. Everyone who doesn't agree with his view on abortion is literally burning in hell right now, right? Yet they're good people? Nothing these people say makes any sense. They are not credible people. I'm sorry. So here's DeSantis, and you tell me what you think. Remember, he doesn't say the voters shouldn't nominate. He says the party. And he knows damn well that guilty verdict isn't coming down until after many of these contests. By the way, the judge in the Mar-a-Lago case in Florida looks like she wants to postpone it until after the election. We haven't gotten the ruling yet, but her comments yesterday sure as hell seem to indicate that she thinks the trial should be after the presidential election.
And you did say, Governor, at that August debate when the question was put to the entire panel, if Donald Trump is convicted, will you still, and he is the nominee, would you still support him? And you raised your hand. You're a lawyer. You've served in the Navy. You were well trained at the greatest schools. Do you really believe that a man who's convicted of, say, attempting to overturn the 2020 election or taking nuclear secrets back to his beach club, do you actually still, as we sit here today, believe that person should be president?
So I signed a pledge, Willie, and that pledge is what it is. Now, do I think somebody under those circumstances could get elected president? The answer is no. That will not happen. I think that Republican voters will understand that as we get closer to voting. But it would be fatal in a general election. And I don't think the party should nominate. And that's
boom. He separated the voters from the party and said he thinks that the voters would be or will smarten up somehow by the time we get dude, you are aware that we are very close to the Iowa caucuses, right? They're in January. He somehow thinks he says there's going to be this mass transformation. He still believes voters are going to come to their senses and, agree with him because that's the only way it makes sense in his mind, right? And so he separated it there and then said the party in that circumstance. He means if the voters already nominated him. That's what he means.
Situation.
In that situation. In other words, if they don't come to their senses, the party should not nominate him in that situation. He means to rob him of his duly earned nomination by basically turning the convention upside down and giving something that Ken Cuccinelli has wanted for a long time, super delegates on the Republican side.
However, I signed the pledge. I'm a Republican. I don't think it's going to come to that. And I think we'll get the job done like we need to. But the reality is I signed it and that's what I did.
There it is. I think we'll get the job done as we need to, and Laura, I'm sorry, I can't hear you when you carry on in like an entire conversation. Pop in and say it. Pop in, though, if you're going to, do that, you should pop in, babe. Pop in. Say what you're going to say. He should listen to his own constituents. The problem is he has been thoroughly rejected by his own constituents. All right. So while I get into some of the, let me see. Do I have it handy? I know I have it handy here.
He just blatantly on national television said the party shouldn't listen to his constituents. Like, what the fish and chips is wrong with him? Does he think that's going to make him more likable?
Laura, they got Twitter, X, to put a community note under my tweet about the Florida Assembly denouncing his run, telling him to come home, be a governor, you have lost. And they got them to put a community note under my tweet that basically says that party assemblies mean nothing. There are party assemblies for almost every state all across the country. They are the grassroots. The Florida Republican Assembly is the grassroots of the state. It's unbelievable that they don't care about the constituents. They mocked them. They thought they were openly saying that letter meant nothing. That resolution meant nothing. It's unbelievable. That's how Ronald Reagan was nominated. He used the assemblies to be the grassroots candidate. It's unbelievable. Anyway, let's get in real quick. I got to read this because it's coming. Quote, Florida GOP elected officials to turn on DeSantis endorse Trump. I told you this was going to happen. And when that letter came out, they said it was nothing and got Twitter to do it. Everybody who knows anybody in Florida, like me, by the way, knew this was coming. Republican elected officials in Florida are expected to flip their endorsements from Governor Ron DeSantis to former President Donald Trump next week, NBC News reported Wednesday, after DeSantis received the backing of 99 state legislatures, which, we've gone over this before. A lot of them did it based on threats and based on fear. Now he's coming back a lame duck. They don't give a damn anymore. Allies of the former president have orchestrated an effort in the state to switch them to Trump. Two sources familiar told NBC News. And by the way, the new speaker, he's not going to be a DeSantis ass kisser. He is a Hispanic from South Florida, a Republican, and he is a Trumper. He is not, things are not going to be the same for Ronnie when he gets home. As many as 6 of the state's GOP elected officials will likely announce their support for Trump as early as next week after the Florida Freedom Summit Saturday and amid the 3rd GOP presidential debate Wednesday in Miami, which the former president is skipping to hold a rally in the state. He's genius. He's a freaking genius. I'm sorry. I don't know how they thought they were going to beat him. This guy is too smart, man. When it comes to primary politics, particularly, this guy he just knows, he gets it. He really does. Anyway, it's coming, a source familiar told NBC News. Exact number not yet said, but it will be close to 10. That's what we heard yesterday, Laura. Or not yesterday. What is it? It's Friday. That's what we heard earlier in the week, that it was going to be close to 10. The NBC said at least 6. I think that's being conservative, but I do think that was probably a smart, like I would probably have said at least 6 or 7, but we heard it's going to be ballpark 10. A GOP lobbyist in the state who was not involved in the effort said that, quote, at least 5 can be expected to switch their endorsements to Trump, and told NBC News that, quote, there is no doubt that there are more coming next week, unquote. So again, ballpark 10. Trump is also hosting an event at Mar-a-Lago honoring the Republican Party of Florida the day following the debate and his rally, according to a copy on an invitation obtained by NBC News. The move from Trump's, he kneecaps them. He sucks every molecule of oxygen out of the room. You cannot beat him. The move from Trump's allies come after they effectively killed the Florida GOP's loyalty pledge to support the eventual nominee, which was endorsed by DeSantis and mirrored the Republican National Committee's requirement to participate in state's primary. In the lead up to the repeal of the loyalty oath, state executive committee members were invited to Mar-a-Lago events. A veteran Republican in the state told NBC News, "It seems like a solid approach to win over grassroots leaders that have been largely ignored by the DeSantis operation during the re-elect and the presidential campaign to this point." Trump secured endorsements from the majority of the delegation: Anna Paula Luna, Matt Gaetz, Byron Donalds, Carlos Gimenez, Corey Mills, Greg Steube, Vern Buchanan, and John Rutherford. And that's why Carlos was so ballsy. His district is super MAGA, and he thinks like he could get away with what he did to Jim Jordan. For a 2024 Republican primary in Florida, Trump is leading the field by 35 points. He's leading by 40 now, followed by DeSantis with 22. This is according to Fabrizio and Lee poll taken on October 4th. So I guess Fabrizio just copied and pasted our poll because that's almost identical. Right? Isn't it? Haley's even at 7. We just had DeSantis fall now below 20. Neither DeSantis nor Trump immediately responded to the request from the Daily Mail. So this is an absolute humiliation. This is just day after day, Laura, of humiliation. Just one day after another of humiliation. Let's get back.
Yeah, but he destroys himself, though.
He killed himself, babe. I have no sympathy at all for him. He's a grown-ass man. He turned his attack dogs on me, and why did he do it? Based on the memos that we saw? Because I'm trusted by the right. Because my poll results are trusted by the right. So they tried to go after my credibility, which if they succeeded, Laura, would have taken away my career.
Yeah, but the thing is,
trying to destroy my career.
Been able to succeed because the truth prevails. So you win that one.
Yeah, of course. And by the way, I'm one of only 2 pollsters to show that Ron DeSantis was going to win in 2018.
But it's just unbelievable, isn't it, for him to say he's a Republican and then. Because I hold Republicans to a higher standard than I do Democrats. I don't expect much from them. Of course.
You should hold
Republicans, when they talk about conservatism and talk about religion and how, you have a higher power to answer to, and then to be despotic really goes through me like no other. It just shows that you're a piece of garbage and you're doing it for a paycheck. Or, I don't know, maybe favors from your wife because you don't get any. I don't know what it is. But needless to say, that woman did her husband a disservice. She made him look like an idiot. And
double burn!
Looks like just a simple wannabe. She wants to be Melania, but will never be. And
wannabe Jackie O.
Not even.
Just for the record, when we met them,
she was going trying to find Melania's clothing designers. Like, she was like, I want to look like her, but yet you want to trash her. Meanwhile, that woman speaks several different languages.
They spread a rumor that Melania is filing for divorce.
Oh God.
This is how disgusting these people are. They said they spread a rumor that Melania is filing for divorce.
She's just jealous that she's uglier and Melania is beautiful.
I can't say that. You can.
I can. She
Melania
doesn't
is
a
a
candle to
beautiful
Melania
woman.
Trump.
It's a very high bar to me.
Sounds like a bit of jealousy, if you ask me.
Hector, Rich, should Trump do a quick visit to Kentucky before Tuesday? This is the thing, Hector. This is what they're trying to do, Hector. They're trying to keep him off the campaign trail with all this lawfare. Absolutely, he should. I could give him 3 counties right now that are priorities that he should go to, with Cameron. I was wondering why he wasn't, doing more for Daniel Cameron, but he's running for president himself and he is in court constantly. So this is the point of him being in court. And again, another reason why, if you support it or you're relying on lawfare to win a nomination or to win any elected office, you're a piece of shit, because you are willing to give up the future of this country just to win for your own political ambitions. And nobody should see it any other way. By the way, with all the pay for play stuff they're racking up against that one, he should not at all support these political persecutions, because they'll easily come for him. Easily. He has given them so much ammunition between pay for play with Brian and the donations to the PAC. When he's governor, you want a meeting with the governor, you got to give this to this, you got to do that, write a check here, write a check there. Yeah, that's illegal. That's pay for play. And then there is also, of course it happens a lot, but they were gross about it. And then, of course, the use of Never Back Down to serve as a official campaign capacity when we've never seen any super PAC hold such a dominant role in any presidential campaign. But they are more than pushing the boundaries of what is legal. So, it's just such a short-sighted, narrow-minded view that, it's fatal to the country, you idiot, to let the government take out leading presidential candidates. It is fatal to the country. We will have nothing but a list of state-approved schmucks to vote for every 2, 4, and 6 years. Open your eyes. How are Republicans looking in Virginia? Butch, I was trying to hit that up a little bit before. Early voting looks it really does come, it's very close in Virginia. And it really does come down to turnout on election day, because early voting compared to 2021 was not particularly strong. I'm talking about in total numbers, but the demographics look good. Let's see if I can find something for you real quick. There is, as far as that's October 26th, though, and I don't want to look that up. Republicans have dropped Democrats below 60 again. Excuse me. Here's what I'm looking for. And by the way, this is Michael Prusier. I want to give him credit, but he's 100% correct. So let me pop this up. I saw this and I was going to create a graphic, and then I was going to create a graphic. I was talking to Kirsten at Laura, our vendor, our voter file vendor. And then I saw Michael put this up and I'm like, oh, he did it. But this is it. Here's a great, there were in 2021, 562,905 early votes by this period when he did this, which I believe was yet 2 days ago. In fairness, Chesterfield did not get its report on October 31st, but with 4 days of early vote remaining, the struggle is real. No crescendo. And that's what word I was trying to look for before. There was no, I said spike, but there was no big crescendo like you saw in 2021 at the end. What you're seeing is a real fade. But they still, we hope to get to the projected 575,000 and number, and it does not look like that's going to happen. As of 2 days ago, it was 372,199, a downward trajectory. So in 2020, we saw this big crescendo, even though we did have some dips about 2 weeks before the election. Now at the period he was at 7 days, that should be leading into that final week. You should see a big spike, and that's not happening. So it's almost like early vote just faded out from the very beginning, with the exception of the 40th day period. From the very beginning, it did look like early voting was going to be weaker. I just didn't think anyone expected it to be this weak. This is significantly weak compared to 2021. All right. But demographics wise, it still does favor Democrats. You should expect them to win it. Of course, it's just by how much. And then will there be enough election day vote to really bring it home? Let's see. Yeah, the thing, and that's a good argument with Kentucky. Okay, so here's the early vote update. Okay, it's not picking up. It's not. Here's the newer update. Okay, it's still percentage wise, still down considerably. And just to show you what I mean, it was negative 35% in that last graphic I just showed you. It's actually substantially more negative. Well, not substantial, but another 1.5 almost. So negative 36.3. There's the 6th and 5th days. Remember I said on the 7th day, which you can see here before the election, 7 days before the election, there was no crescendo. It in fact dropped. All right. It did tick up again, but this is not the crescendo that we normally see. Even on that 5th, 7th, 6th, and 5th day mark, the 6th and 5th, it picked back up. But guys, this is pretty pathetic. Usually within the last 2 weeks, you see a steady increase. Even though that rate of increase may slow, it is still a steady increase. And we did not see that here. Interesting to see what happens on days 4, days 3, days 2. We'll just have to see. Again, credit to, because he did it, and I said I'll work on Kentucky. Credit to Michael Pruger, who did this on what's it called? On Twitter. Put it out on Twitter. And then just to give you an idea, here's L2, although I'm really, what's the word? I am a little bit, Loudoun County is significantly more D. That's a pretty big deal. Democrats are doing pretty well in Loudoun County. Like I said, they're going to need a big election day turnout. But where is this? Is Hudson, New Jersey? That's interesting. That's not very good. Oh yeah, I was going to say for Democrats, but it is. Republicans don't early vote at all in New Jersey. See what I mean, Laura? They're just not doing it. They're not doing it. That's Richmond, heavily Democratic. Chesterfield, bad result for Democrats. This is one that I was going to point out. Chesterfield's one that I'm watching. And here, what we can clearly see, and remember, this is an inference model. This suggests that Republicans have a very real potential to carry Chesterfield. All right. And Chesterfield's battleground. I don't know if Youngkin eventually did lose it by like a point or two, but he, of course, swung at 13 points or so from the 2020 election. Loudoun County's just getting more Democratic. We've gone over this before. Enrico, same thing. Here's the overall of Virginia. Okay, so let's look at the overall. All right. 59.3% Democrat, 35.5% Republican. That's from that little update over the last 2 days. The Democrats had fallen down to about 58 and change. Republicans were at 36 and change. It started to eat into Democrats' advantage. Now we're down again here. Again, though, it's fairly white. 71%, 13.3% African-American, 3.3% Hispanic, 3% Asian. And it looks like rural did fall, but it's still 28%. So 55% female, 74.4% are above the age of 55. So they're really netting less. 18 to 29 is only 5%. This does not look that good for Democrats, Laura. This does not look very good for them. I don't want to get any hopes up for you Republicans out there. I'm telling you, you're going to need a big election day turnout anyway. But we have our own dashboard like this. This does not look very good. I would be pretty surprised. This is worse than 2021 for Democrats. Wow. But none of that matters. Yeah, they have, though. Absolutely. It says Republicans closing the gap considerably. They have. Hat tip to the Virginia Election Project. There are people out there who talk, and then there are people out there who do. And I got to give those guys credit. They're out there. They're beating the pavement. They're doing the work. And very clearly, it looks like even if they haven't really racked it up, I mean, hell, Laura, Prince William is only 59.5% Democrat return. And again, this is inferred. All of this is inferred. You understand what I mean by that? There is no specific party registration in Virginia. So voter file models like L2 and ours are forced to use other attributes we know from the voter to determine whether or not they're Republicans or Democrats. What attributes can that be? Participation in primaries. They don't have it because they don't have a database like we do. But we also look at donation records, right? They have good automobile records, L2, but they only have about 400 or so attributes attached to each voter. We have about 1,400, so it's significantly more. However, I don't expect we would see that big of a difference here because the sampling is much smaller than 21. We were definitely different than Target Smart in 21. We argued with Tony Boner, remember? That's what I call him. I'm not going to call him anything but. We argued with Boner over at Target Fart, and we were right. He was wrong. So their inference modeling was wrong, was off. So I hope that gets in it. That's several people who asked about Virginia. That's why I made such a big thing about it. But you have any idea on who Trump's VP shortlist with RFK jumping in and now that Kerry is running for Senate? We did talk about this to Weege a little bit the other day. I mean, Lee Zeldin is certainly on it. Kirsty Noem's certainly on it. But I don't think he's close to being there yet. Will it even matter 1% when the Libertarian actually have a candidate? It could. 1% can matter. You talking about Kentucky in general, or other, just the race for president? I mean, it always can matter for sure. I think Blake Masters was hurt by the Libertarian in Arizona, right? Not as much to win, but it would have been closer. Should Trump do a quick visit to Kentucky? Oh, I already read that. Yeah, I mean, yes. Also, where should I look for a comprehensive list of voting methods in the U.S. by state, mail-in, same day, etc.? You got to look state by state, Hector. You got to go through each state's particular rules. Not every state is the same. I would look at the Secretary of State for that. The Board of Elections, every state's a little bit different, but you start with the Secretary of State. That's a good place to go. Ballotpedia is also a good resource. They're just not always the most up-to-date. All right. I know Daniel didn't spend on yard signs. I see 0, but plenty of Bashir. I live in a small suburb, and our little downtown is where the Bashir signs are. That's the target for Bashir. Those small town suburbs. That's what's going to be, key here. He had money. Daniel Cameron did not. Like I said, they were too busy giving to the guy who was I just showed you on MSNBC, who was talking about how superdelegates should be instated. And, is basically what he's saying, unbind the delegates and take Trump's delegates away at the convention in case he gets a felony. When he knows damn well that Alan Dershowitz is right. Again, all of these people, he's a lawyer himself. He knows damn well that that's likely going to go to the higher court and be thrown out anyway. Everything will be. I don't know. A Susquehanna poll I talked about, it's not corrupt. They're an outlier right now. They've had some pretty funny results. I don't know what Jim is doing. I don't know. I got asked by several people, media people, like last couple of polls they've done. One thing they did in 22, which was weird, was not write someone else on the generic ballot. They wrote independent, and when you do that, you'll get a huge result. And they had like they had a Democrat +6 generic ballot because 30-something% said independent. Well, they were thinking it's an independent part. You can't do that because then independents will think, oh, I'm going to vote for the independent. That's when they, in fact, are never going to do that in real life. They're going to pick one. It was the way you word it, and that was, I don't know, kind of a rookie mistake. I was a little bit surprised to see it. We'll just keep an eye on them for now, but they've done a good job in the last 2 presidential cycles. Question for Rich. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, I'm assuming yes. Just give my medicine straight. Yeah, I gave it to you, Dan. It's bad. It's looking bad for their result. Thoughts on the Blake Masters running against Abe Hamadeh for Arizona 8? I get it's a safe R and a bloody primary wouldn't affect the general, but it seems like a messiah complex. Once you target Maricopa recorder election or similar, R's are just stupid fighting MAGA. Yeah, I agree. The problem is Blake Masters was told he wanted to run again, and he had this, and I know Blake is a good guy. I'm telling you, I get along with Blake a lot. I do. But I did think that Kerry was the stronger candidate for the Senate. I think that's been proven by vote share. But he was right that somebody should get in early and raise a lot of money, and Kerry had a lot on her plate and couldn't get in right away. So I got that. She went and met with some people in DC and met with some people to try to get, some to repair the relationship between the NRSC people and, like Steve Daines and John Barrasso and others, try to repair that relationship so that Arizona isn't left orphaned, fend for itself like it was last time. They screwed Blake Masters. And Blake said, okay. And I personally suggest, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I personally suggested that Blake should run for Congress. But this is where he had two choices. Go as our seat or this. So, Debbie, let's go. So here we are. Okay. I was not aware that Abe wanted to run, but I still would have suggested it anyway. And now let's talk about the polling duos. There was a poll that showed, released by Abe, that Abe is ahead. There was a poll that showed, released by Blake, that Blake is ahead. I know Calif, add data orbital. I know they know what they're doing with polling. I don't know this other polling group. I've seen them polling now for different places, but I don't know who they are, and I don't know whether they know what they're talking about. Landon, he's another good pollster in Arizona. All I can tell you is that Blake's pollster, Data Orbital, released what every pollster should be required to release. You don't just put up, especially when you know that someone like Calif is going to put out a poll. They're well respected. You owe it to people to put out the same amount of information. How the poll was conducted, what the crosstabs are, right? What was the questionnaire asked? I mean, Data Orbital put it all out. So I got to air with Blake's pollster on this. Why? You know me with transparency, folks. I don't like top line PDF pollsters. I don't like it. And that includes some I know and respect. But that's BS, and they need to put out more, especially when they know that their result is a dueling result with another respected pollster. You owe it to us. You owe it to people. You owe it to your own candidate to put out a credible-looking product. Sorry. So I'm with Blake on this. We'll see what happens when somebody else polls. Do you think the UAW strike at the Ford Super Duty plant in Kentucky and the outreach by Trump to auto workers helped sway some moving to Cameron? P-Dub, that's a great question. And I do, because Cameron upped his efforts to show that he is the Trump guy and that if you vote for Bashir, you're voting for Biden. I do. By the way, I was supposed to end this show before too. We have an API call. I am very, 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 very happy with the product. I just need the API to finish and be done in time. We're really against the clock here. It's tough. I'm not going to lie. Next time, I'm just going to get one of these people to write myself. They're going to write a custom thing for People's Pundit. And it's not going to be cheap, but I love you guys and I love what we do here. And we're going to have the best 2024 election coverage out there. All right. I'm not going on anybody else's show. They want me to talk on their show. They're going to have to use my show as an input or something and I'll pop in and say hello for a little bit, but our show is going to be it in 24. Huge. All right. Super stoked about what we got coming up.
Well, they deserve the best. They've been with us from the beginning.
They do. Yep. What if the Supreme Court does not intervene? Trying to remove Trump from the ballot. Then Trump will be removed from blue state ballots. One that he probably can't win anyway. Colorado, though, I got to wonder. I know they're trying to get precedent, and it's so blatant. This judge is a hack, Democratic donor and everything. It's just so obvious and blatant. But I got to wonder whether or not, because New Mexico was a little under 11 points, right? 10.8. Colorado was more, 55.4 to 41.9. Are they worried about some of these Western states? Because, geez, look at New York. It's like if you're 10 or below, you're in danger of losing it. If Biden won the state by 10 or less, he's seriously in danger of losing the states. State like New Hampshire might be a little bit harder to budge, but I absolutely can see some of these other states falling, especially because of the change in the coalitions. Is there blood in the water around Mitch McConnell due to his neurological issues and Mike Johnson becoming speaker? Who could replace him? Josh Hawley, Rand Paul. There is blood in the water. And I would, though, first make sure that, unlike what happened in the House, which I think could have ended disastrous, the map for Democrats in 24 is brutal. So we'll see him revisit who should take over when that's done. But McConnell cannot be allowed to continue to be the majority leader after 24. He must be destroyed and removed. He's got to go. I'm sorry. Wouldn't a door-to-door audit in Arizona and Georgia prove that the election was stolen from Trump in 2020, which is why the Uniparty would be terrified of one? Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, at this point, it's unbelievable that the judge in Connecticut took so easily that video at face value when we had very similar evidence in Arizona. That woman stuffed more than her own ballot into that box. So they saw it on the video multiple times, and that was it. I watched a guy in Maricopa with an entire, what is it, priority mail? Yeah, the priority mail size box that they have, one of those square priority mail flat rate boxes, right? Priority flat rate. And he had multiple of them, and they were stacked completely. And he threw in one Dropbox location. He was going, well, in one Dropbox location, he would pull it out and then throw that box into that Dropbox. Then go to another one, throw another one into another Dropbox. I mean, so audits, I mean, the longer we wait, unfortunately, the harder it gets. But yes. What could Virginia Republicans do differently to get the base motivated? Is the turnout low because just Senate and State House with no governorships? Yeah, that's a lawn man. Absolutely. It's a shame what McCarthy and them did to David Giglio. It is. That's why, you should give up no ground, cede no ground. And again, nobody like Kevin McCarthy should be representing an R+30 district. It should not be the case. And somebody should primary Greg Murphy. I'm sorry. He very, very, very much betrayed the base, betrayed his district, and you will not find those equivalents among Democrats. Rumble, do you think Donald Trump should run for president again in the future? A or B? What do you mean? After this? No. I think Mike Johnson's strategy of coupling funding for things the establishment wants by defunding other things they see, Israel, IRS, could be a great strategy going forward. I do too. Imagine if a Republican candidate promised to forgive student loan debt by defunding the FBI and the NSA. You're a MAGA Republican. You get it. That's all I got to say. You get it. That's a great question. I think Mike Johnson, I try to explain this to people. He's viewed as like this religious right guy. And while he is religious and spiritual, he is not that kind of Republican, which turns out to be a phony anyway, like Laura brought up. He was in the study committee, the Republican study committee in 2016 or 2020, right? Whatever it was. Yeah. But he was not a moderate on that study committee. He was a populist, blue-collar, conservative who was also religious, trying to make the party in Congress more of a blue-collar, working-class party. I'm telling you, I know. And it's an untold story, but that's who he is. So I wasn't at all surprised to see some of his strategy. It was really cool. Trump's endorsement for Cameron seems too little, too late, weak sauce. He already endorsed him. He had endorsed him back before the primary. Is that due to a consultant shunning suicide pacts or sucking up some McConnell? Yeah, I mean, well, Cameron is running for the governor, so he can't replace McConnell. Well, he can if he runs for McConnell's seat later, after. That's a good point. But yeah, Trump had endorsed him for a while. It's just that he, and this is Dr. Know-It-All, he this is what the lawfare is going to do to him. He should have been in Kentucky more. I think he should be on the trail all the time. But now that they did this to him, he can't be. And I know for a fact he had planned to do that. And he was going to be running a very different kind of campaign than what he ran in 2020. More like 16. Only one that evolved to recognize that his coalition has evolved and grown. So he was going to try to do, appeal to different groups. What's Rich's prediction for the New Jersey Assembly this year? New Jersey's getting more Republican since auto voter registration kicked in. I kid you not. And it's totally organic. Interesting, right? Because Republicans aren't doing anything to drive it. But I don't think we're there yet. There is, under the right condition, a way for New Jersey to get a Republican senator. I've been arguing this since Bob Old Huggy. All right. And he almost did it, by the way. The person who was a kingmaker, I don't want to get into it because I don't want to give anyone ideas. He has died. He was basically solely responsible for getting huge chunks of Hispanics to get out and vote Democrat. He's gone now. So there is an opportunity. And that's why I said, if New York swung that much to Donald Trump, I got to wonder if New Jersey's not similarly closer than people would expect. Can he win it? I mean, no. But it's possible that it's close. Like what's his name close, which would be a disaster. I mean, if Democrats have to start realizing, if Democrats realize that because it's true that they have to start defending blue states that, they didn't expect, because maybe under the right conditions, a 5-point loss can turn into an eke of a win. That would be a game changer. Can Rich expound on this $1 million plus fee for committee seats? Yeah. So basically what I was referring to before is how this goes. All right. And then you're in the network and you got to, the fee really can be paid different ways, which is what, this is why somebody like John Duarte is in deep trouble, because now that some of these committee chairs who, like Kay Granger, who promised Kevin she would help him, give me my waiver and I'll help John Duarte, the fee, she's not going to be there anymore. So Duarte's in a lot of trouble and nobody wants to work for John. And by the way, his last 2 people that he fired are running around telling everybody how much John really does hate Donald Trump. So this is some bull, because I've been told by some people who surround Trump that, I know him. He's more Trumpy than he appears in public. And that isn't true. Richie, $1.99. Oh, I'm sorry. Reading. Thoughts on a VA Dems calling in Obama? They know it's a problem. Yeah, that's telltale, Tristan. Telltale. Tristan on YouTube. What is the day to vote in New York for the primary you're talking about? Let me get it for you. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I'll get it for you right now. Where's my delegate tracker? Delegate tracker. Where art thou? Delegate tracker. No, that's the poll trend. Where's my delegate tracker, Laura? What the hell? What have I done with this thing? Let me write in nomination, maybe. Schedule? I guess so. Let's see. New York is... There's Florida. It's after that. Tuesday, April 2nd. All right. Okay. Federal government should be completely aloof to just about everything. No one should have to run anything of the sort. Yeah, I mean, totally agree. Judge Cannon, they should just be good stewards, of like the economy, make sure the border's secure. Defense is a proper role, but I think it's just crazy. We're an insular power. We don't need We don't need this robust military industrial complex. They can't invade us. Or they could try, and they can die. I mean, it's stupidity. It's suicide trying to invade an insular power. Yeah, Judge Cannon did rule to put off the trial. It's official. There it is. Per Charlie Kirk 20 seconds ago, or really it was at 1:42. There it is. I told you she sounded like it. I told you she was just like, I don't think this is right. I'm not interfering with a presidential race. Aha! So what the hell now? Where do I see GOP growth? Specific counties? That's too big of a question. What counties need to grow? That could be an entire show. Ideas, not money. That could be an entire show. I think she wants to know, should she early vote? Oh, in New York? Yeah, sure you can. Absolutely. Listen, there can be things they can do with your election day vote too. I thought Arizona proved that to everybody. I really did. But apparently some people are not understanding that my argument here. You cannot stop them from cheating. All you can do is overwhelm them. If you take listen, I know people who showed up on election day and found out the Democrats already voted with their vote early. So, right, Laura, how many people have we heard this from and verified it? Then I had to cancel that ballot and then vote what is essentially a provisional, or there's a name for it in Arizona. And then, all you have to do is rely that they actually did it. It does tell people how many votes you got in the bank already. But the idea would be to get as many of you guys, early voters, in and banked, plus some of these new low propensity voters or just flat out new voters. And then still, because Republicans aren't listening, still you're going to see hopefully a large enough election day turnout. You cannot wait for 8 hours or 10 hours to outdo what your opponent has been doing for 45, 60 days. You just can't do it. It's logistically stupid. So you should vote early. Yeah. In New York, I'm not sure what the first day is to vote early, but if you're April 2nd, rest assured you'll be able to vote probably by March 15th or something. Yep. So that's it. Rich, do you think the conference was caught off guard by the Speaker Johnson nomination? In other words, were the Rhinos really caught flat-footed? I think they caved. They had no choice. Kevin McCarthy and the Rhinos were trying to figure out how to get him back in power, or have Tom Emmer basically hold his, keep his seat warm, because that's all Tom Emmer is. He's an ass. That's all he's good for, being an ass. This guy is not even a Republican. I don't know what the hell he's doing there. Again, another example. You cannot go through the Democratic conference like this and say, fraud, poser, crook, fraud, poser, fraud. You just can't do it. You could go crazy, but their voters like that shit. So, it's not really a bad thing. Crook, sure, whatever. They don't care. Joe Biden could literally be giving the Chinese secrets for free because they have tape of his son boinking a 12-year-old girl, and Democrats would not care. All that matters is whether or not they represent their vote. That's it. All right, so 2:23. Damn, I guess I'm out. I'm out of questions. That was great. It was a good show. Long, but it was a good show. All right, I'm going to go and do my thing, and hopefully this goes well. I will say this too. I don't know how it's going to go yet. I don't know if we're going to run this new system through like a virtual camera into like StreamYard, like we're doing. We're not doing a virtual camera, but it's running StreamYard, putting it out to everywhere else, or because it is just local supporters and YouTube members, maybe we'll wind up having to test direct streaming just to them, but multiple destinations, a little bit tricky with all this API stuff flowing through it. So I don't know what we're going to do yet, but locals, I'm going to try to pop this on and see if we think the audio is a little off. And really, if we do a test on the locals, you'll be able to tell us whether or not if it's not the audio, then we'll just see. It's either the video is late or the audio's too fast, and we can delay it a little bit, which is what we're trying to do. We'll see. This way we can have like kind of time to preview something before we put it out. We want a slight delay if possible, because you can make mistakes in elections, and I don't want to be like Laura Ingraham or Frank Luntz. Want to do it right, get it right. All right, that's it. Yeah, that's all. Nothing but love for you guys. Don't forget the public polling project. I did see a couple of you contributed when we were on the show today. Thank you for that. Support publicly funded public opinion. BigDataPoll.com. Check it out. You can find it right on the menu, and give what you can. Send it far and wide to your friends. Let's get that puppy funded. And of course, if you are watching wherever, on Locals, Rumble, wherever, like the videos if you like the videos. YouTube, same thing. Do not forget to subscribe. In fact, if you are watching on YouTube, I would like you to go over to Rumble and subscribe also on Rumble. If you're watching on Rumble, I would like you to also go and subscribe on YouTube. But of course, no matter where you're watching us from, the best place to follow us is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Join the revolution in data journalism. Nothing but love for you. Have a good Friday, and I will see you guys real soon. Again, one more time. Coverage starts at 6 p.m. next week. We're going to roll right into it. Don't forget. Book club. See you on Sunday. And with that in mind, I think that's a wrap. Right, love? Yeah. Thank you.
And have a blessed weekend.
Have a blessed weekend. And we will see you guys real soon. All the best. Thanks for watching. Deuces. Pretty cool graphic, isn't it?